on that one. I'm not even gonna front. Lactoid showing was pretty epic.
And then I didn't even really follow this up with the Dreamers thing. I was going to be like, this is how dishonest they are. Look, we compromised with 9 out of 10 things they wanted on here. Then when they could have gave the Dreamers what they wanted, you know what? They didn't get the Dreamers shit because they're so dishonest. They would just use them, just like they use black people for their votes.
Gibbs, how do you do this?
I got my talking points down.
You ain't lying.
What is stream left?
I'm gonna get a cup and some ice. Be right back.
Cool.
Gotta get the jack ready.
On Tiberius and non-smoker, and we're good to go.
The liquor and pain meds is a great combo there, Lactoid.
No, it absolutely is not.
It's a great combo. What are you talking about? It's not.
I mean, if you never want to feel pain again.
Yeah, exactly. Numb your soul.
Literally. How you doing today, Hoss? I guess he stepped away for a minute. Ty should be here at any point. Let me check my streams. Should be good.
Tell me why. When I was booking a hotel for TwitchCon, prices went down when I put more days.
What?
The price went down when I put more days for TwitchCon hotels. So I was originally just doing 3 days. I was like, let me see what it looks like with 4, and the overall cost went down. I was like,
Pretty great.
It was something. I don't know if great's the right word I'd use. Anytime I have to spend any time in California is, a bad time.
Also, just a comment on something that was said earlier. The painkiller that you really don't want to mix with alcohol is Tylenol, acetaminophen. That is particularly dangerous.
Yeah,
ibuprofen, ibuprofen and aspirin. You can research everything I'm about to say. Ibuprofen and aspirin. Generally, it's not good to take them with alcohol, but it's not the same level of danger as it is with with Tylenol, acetaminophen. That's the single worst thing you can do. Do not do that.
I was talking about the good painkillers, like what? Like the morphine and the, clozapam and Flexeril and all the good, exciting ones. Not this pussy bullshit extra strength. Is that what they gave you? Extra strength? Let me tell you something, Lactoid. This is going to make you mad.
Who gave me what? What are you talking about?
When you had your spill on your motorcycle.
You think I went to the doctor for that?
That's even better. That makes the story I'm going to tell you make you even more mad. Goodness. Are y'all ready for this? Oh, yeah. Make sure I go live.
I'm still having to take ibuprofen, by the way, to make sure I can breathe right, but I'm not going to go to the doctor.
Let me tell you this story. So y'all know Modi. Do y'all know Modi? I know some of y'all know Modi.
Oh, we know Modi.
This motherfucker, he's like a hypochondriac. Anyway, he gets a kidney stone. Okay, those suck. They hurt. They gave him a morphine drip for this kidney stone. And I was like, well, I had a kidney stone in college once after I nearly shut my kidneys down from cutting weight. And they just gave me a slap in the ass and told me to rub some dirt on it. Give a morphine drip for a kidney stone? Lactoid over here, he gets road rash, and he's like, let me smoke a cigar and drink a little liquor. We'll call it even. And they're over here, morphine drip. This is why the UK needs the United States to fight its wars for them. They got a bunch of little sissy baby bitches over there. Morphine drips for fucking kidney stones and shit. They're like, that Russia could walk in there with not trained at all. They'd be more manly than the UK right now. That's crazy stuff.
I figure that, if I'm gonna have to go into the doctors every single time I crash a motorcycle.
How's it going?
This is no purpose. Too expensive.
Hey guys.
Yeah. You should have stopped wearing a helmet, then you'll never have to go to the hospital after you.
Nah, that is the one thing that I'll do. I do wear a helmet. Yeah. Because, like, if you crash and you're in pain, that's a sign of, like, hey, everything's kind of functioning up there, right? But if you don't know what's going on, that's, like, a really bad thing.
Sorry about the sound quality, guys.
No, you're clear.
Sounds fine to me.
Oh, okay. My bad. Never mind. Ignore that. Thank me for the sound quality.
There we go.
Non-smoker, are you paid by the Russians too, or no?
I can't disclose that information.
Gotcha. Fair enough.
Have you worked with Comrade Tim Pool? No comment.
You saw the other part that came out today about that. That's like nobody's talking about on the left is that there were 2 FBI agents that admitted that they were actively hunting, trying to ruin Trump's chance to get elected. But nobody's talking about that part of the thing.
I mean,
so the 2 FBI agents from back before that are no longer agents, the Strzok and
I don't know.
Something entirely different.
It's fucking Rick and Morty. Okay.
I hate that show so much.
I don't watch it.
First of all, the show is fine. Okay. Second of
people.
all, yeah, I'm pissed, by the way, about the whole Russia thing because I'm supposed to get my check from Putin tomorrow. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to cash it now. Okay, because the DOJ's got their eyes on all this shit. So, fuck.
I mean, I don't know if that's the real good news story. I'm really enjoying this Dana Bash thing the most. That you know about the Dana Bash thing?
No.
Oh, yeah. Let me just post this in here for y'all. Y'all are going to love this. And it's Fox News. I know y'all love it, but it's got a clip of her saying this. Basically, all the Democrat men are low T soy boy beta cucks, according to their own people. So that's what you're voting for.
I have studies on this, by the way. Like seriously, I have studies on every claim that I make. Conservatives do tend to have a more upper body strength, taller, and higher testosterone. In fact, so much so
better looking.
When you get and that's also true. But when it's so much so, like I can send you a study. When you give Democrat men testosterone, they become more favorable to Republicans. Actually,
that's particularly interesting.
It's true. He's not quite as well. He's a lot more vocal now that Destiny isn't here. That's
I think. So what you're telling me is Republicans
I
are
was
the party
kept
of
talking.
roid ragers.
That's
I was
looking
getting
at
cucked. I got people messaging me going, Gibbs, you're getting cucked by Wick. I was like, we're gonna have to change tactics and start doing one-liners.
Parallax. I think Parallax was fucking with you a little bit. I don't know.
It wasn't even Parallax that messaged me that.
Oh, okay, never mind then.
He did message me, but somebody else messaged me like, bro, how come every time you try to talk, Wick cucks you? I was like, yeah, don't worry, I got a tactic to get around that. Time to start just doing one-liners.
Gas walling. There we go. All right, welcome one and all to the Minds of the Ecclesia panel. I am your host, LetheWaterKai, and with me I have some awesome guests, some you haven't seen in a long time, some you're used to. And I'm going to go ahead and let them get a introduction, starting with Admiral Gibbs.
Hi, if you like defending America from the evil leftist, I'm your guy. Don't be a socialist, it's evil. Listen to me. And you'll have more money in your pocket.
Fair enough. And with us today, after an awesome showing yesterday, Lactoid.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me, Lethe. I'm so happy to be here on my non-Russian, very American, pro-America, July 4th, et cetera, stream that I'm here, and I'm looking forward to the topics.
Awesome. I can't even.
I need the backstory to this at some point.
And with us today, non-smoker. Good to have you.
Yeah, hey guys, twitch.tv/non_smoker. Currently awaiting our imminent nuclear destruction, and just want to say U.S. trade policy is bad for working people.
Awesome. And with us, I think you know him well, Tiberius D.
Yeah, here once again, every week, Wednesday night. You can usually catch me out here. Prime doesn't invite me, but Lethe does, so that's just how it generally works out here. Appreciate it, buddy. Do I need an introduction? I'm literally here every week. Yeah, I'm a centrist, kind of like Republican. I look at MAGA and I think they're deranged. I look at most leftists and think they're deranged. I'm a farm boy from Indiana. I'm not overly complicated in this. I'm actually very interested to see who the space racist is. That's what I'm really trying to figure out here. So I'm gonna pass it off to him.
Oh, so with us we have Base Haas. How you doing, my dude? Glad to
Yo.
have you on.
Yeah, good to be back. Not feeling great today, but I said I'd be here, so I'm here. That's the way it is. But yeah, no, I'm just chilling. I'm here for the conversation. I know a lot about the situation, trade. Figured I'd jump on it.
Well, no matter how things work out, you have the best background in the biz. I'm gonna say that right now. Tiberius, did you see Gibbs' face as you were saying, kind of a Republican?
I mean, I don't own conservative, but I will own Republican. I'm a better Republican than most Republicans are because I actually give a shit about the Republic. But whatever.
All right, so let's start this party off.
Got a brain aneurysm. Listen to that.
What about the
Uh,
Supreme Court, Tiberius? What about that part of the Republic? Sorry, go ahead, Lethe.
What's wrong with the Supreme Court?
No, he would like the Supreme
We
Court.
have one
'cause he's
candidate trying to pack it, but sorry, go ahead, Lethe. I'm sorry.
No, but hold on. The Tiberius here would like that.
No,
He's
we
an
gotta let this run.
He's an authoritarian. He's by his own metric, he likes the idea of the Supreme Court coming and layeth the smack it down, as The Rock would say, like on these people. That's that. So he's okay with whatever it takes to give the government more power as a Republican, staunch authoritarian Republican.
Hey, when Republicans stop shoving power up the ass of the presidency and actually get Congress to do something, I might be on board with this. But like for real, like the Supreme Court actually doing some legislation off the bench, even though I don't always agree with it, is a lot better than the shit where we just keep asking executive privilege to fucking do this shit day in and day out.
All right, so
Can you pass me what you're smoking?
I wish I was smoking right now, dude. I've been sober for 2 months.
You must have some good shit could this still be this high?
Oh God, yeah, no kidding. The question I have for Lactoid is why he's shaking his head at. Like,
I just need to say something quick. Oh
Yep.
no, he didn't. Okay, just so we're clear.
Oh.
Just so we're clear. Obama issued more executive orders than Trump did.
That's right.
276 to 220.
Yeah, there you go.
And that was over 4 years
4
versus
years
8
versus-
years.
Yeah, and check this out. 12.
Shit.
Wait,
Yeah, that's probably right.
hold on. Hold on. I got an answer for this, Lacto. Don't worry. 12 of the last 16 years, Democrats have ran the presidency, so they're the ones who've been using the executive the whole time. I don't want to hear this copium bullshit about how 4 years of Trump was just the executive power was.
Hey, look, I'm gonna. I'll take shots at both sides. The problem is that no matter which party it is, we keep shoving the fuck. I cannot talk. Excuse me. We keep shoving the president to do everything while Congress just skits away with fucking doing not a damn thing. Oh, we're not going to fix border security. We're not going to fix funding. We're not going to cut spending. We're not going to do any of this shit. Just blame the president and then ask them to pass an executive order and see if they can get away with it in the court system. Dude, this is not a way to run a fucking government. And both parties are doing it just in different ways.
Okay, you got an issue with executive. Just to be clear, Donald Trump does have 220. Joe Biden's got 141, which is significantly less than 220. But I mean, these are a lot of executive orders, right?
Same 4-year span too.
In a 4-year span too. Yeah. My other concern here is we're talking about executive privilege. I think Merrick Garland, for example, when they're trying to release the audio of the Her report, Merrick Garland's asserting executive privilege to not release that, despite the fact that they've already released the transcript. I don't really know what's going on there. Merrick Garland was actually found in contempt of Congress for that, if I'm not mistaken. So,
All right, Lethe, let's beat it out.
Say fuck Kamala Harris right now. Do it, Tiberius. Say it.
Fuck Kamala Harris.
Great. All right, go ahead.
No, dude,
That wasn't too difficult.
I don't know if I told you. I went to do my my research on all my candidates and like weigh it out. This is the first year I'm staying home on purpose.
Wow.
Based.
It's like usually I wouldn't do that. I usually believe in like, hey, vote for the lesser of two evils, but holy fuck. Like literally almost every candidate except for one on my docket scored negative. I literally cannot find enough reasons to go vote for them.
Who was the one?
He is a Democrat, the person running for the governor, former Republican, Secretary of Education here in Indiana. She flipped for the Democrats. She's running for governor. She's the only one that has a positive score.
All right, so we good. Were the arguments of the Ukraine war causing a nuclear crisis hyperbole or reality? Russia says it will change nuclear doctrine because of the Western role in Ukraine. Russia will make changes to its doctrine on the use of nuclear weapons in response to what it regards as Western escalation in the war in Ukraine. State media quoted Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov as saying on Sunday. The existing nuclear doctrine set out in a decree by President Vladimir Putin in 2020 says Russia may use nuclear weapons in the event of a nuclear attack by an enemy or a conventional attack that threatens the existence of the state. Some hawks among Russia's military analysts have urged Putin to lower the threshold for nuclear use in order to sober up Russia's enemies in the West. Putin said in June that the nuclear doctrine was a living instrument that could change, depending on world events. Ryabkov's comments on Sundays were the clearest statement yet that changes would indeed be made. The work is at an advanced stage, and there is a clear intent to make corrections, state news agency TASS cited Ryabkov as saying. He said the decision is connected with the escalation course of our Western adversaries in connection with the Ukraine conflict. Moscow accuses the West of using Ukraine as a proxy war against it, with the aim of inflicting a strategic defeat on Russia and breaking it apart. The United States and its allies deny that, saying they are helping Ukraine defend itself against a colonial-style war of aggression by Russia. How do we feel about this? Starting with Gibbs.
Russia's a bunch of bitches. It's good that we're over here handing them the hands and let Ukraine break from MAGA on that issue. I think that this has been fantastic. I just saw we're developing a new tank set to come out pretty soon, and they're basing a lot of stuff on the ass whoopings that are happening to Russia in Ukraine. So I'm pretty pro the war in Ukraine. I'm pretty pro war in general for the U.S. That seems to be our chief export. I don't know why we even slow that down. I think we need to ramp that shit up. So as far as I'm concerned, maybe we should start developing Iron Dome tech with Ukraine. I don't know. We can see how good those nuclear missiles are once we surround them with anti-nuke missiles all around them and take them out. I mean, what? I don't know why at this point we haven't even just fully backed them and just started sending in special forces through the Kursk little corridor. Maybe we can sneak some guys in. They can just assassinate Putin at this point. The guy's just a total fucking bitch. Like all of bitch. Putin, if you're listening, I'll take back everything I said for $1 million.
All right, Lactoid, do your thing.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the position that I've pretty consistently held for a little bit now. Just to be clear, I am not paid by any Russian shell company under false bill items that perhaps could be labeled iPhone. It has not happened, I assure you. Unlike Gibbs, this is perhaps where we break. We rarely do, but I think this is one of the issues. I'm not a pro-war guy. I don't think that we should be expanding war all the time, and I don't think that it's a good thing that war is America's number one export, which I don't think it is. But I would like to see peace in Ukraine, and I don't see that happening with the current trajectory of where things are going. I think that the beginnings of that war are much more complicated than people give it credit for. The beginning, it seems like most Americans just sort of have this mindset of Ukraine good, Russia bad. And I think it's very simplistic. I think it's easy to communicate, but it gives the wrong idea. There are legitimate reasons. I'm not saying all of them, all the reasons were legitimate, or even all the actions taken were legitimate, but there are some legitimate reasons, and there were some legitimate actions that the Russian government undertook when it came to the invasion of Ukraine. Now, that needs to be recognized, while at the same time recognizing that there is a right to sovereignty for most of Ukraine, and that can't be challenged. That can't be removed. So what I would like to see is the next president go there and strike a peace deal, potentially withholding or promising more aid to Ukraine, using that as leverage. Now, the current path we're on, we're going to keep seeing Russia be boxed in into a corner, and they're going to continue to threaten. Do I actually think there's a legitimate threat of nuclear war here? Not at the moment. Their prior nuclear policy allowed the use of nuclear weapons in the case of conventional warfare that threatened the stability of the Russian state. I think if that incursion into Kursk starts getting a little bit closer to Moscow, that could be a potential concern. But I think where things stand right now, that is not a particular. That's not a major concern right now, and so I don't see a serious risk of nuclear war. I think a lot of it is posturing, just to try to, really mostly to try to reinforce the political image of the Russian government as being tough on the West, as being strong on the West, really opposed to anything else.
All right, thank you for that. Let's go with non-smoker.
Yeah, so I mean, little background I think is necessary somewhat, but look, nuclear weapons are primarily used as a deterrent. Great powers and moderate powers alike seek to become nuclear powers to dissuade adversaries from attacking them. In the case of Russia, its initial development of nuclear weapons was probably the only reason we did not see a third world war break out at the conclusion of the second. That being said, since the fall of the Soviet Union, the United States has implemented a complex strategy to try and marginalize and weaken Russia. The reason that they've implemented a strategy like this is because nuclear weapons exist and Russia is armed to the teeth with them. We can't simply invade and take over. So we've tried to namely expand NATO and stoke anti-Russian sentiment in the former Soviet republics as a means of marginalizing Russia's sphere of influence. And we did this in conjunction with instituting or helping Boris Yeltsin institute harsh measures such as shock therapy in the 1990s, which crippled the Russian economy by selling off all the former state-owned enterprises to private interests and multinationals. So in that process, what we did was sort of created this scenario where we had a sleeping bear that we had lulled into sleep and proceeded to poke at it, which eventually woke it up. And the waking up of Russia has been the rise of Putin and Putinism. And with the rise of Putin, you've seen Russia attempt to expand its sphere of influence or reclaim it. And that is in direct contradiction to what our geopolitical goals are in Eastern Europe and Central Asia. This has resulted in a ton of tension, which obviously culminated in 2022 with Russia invading Ukraine. As a nuclear power, the risk of nuclear war goes up drastically if a nuclear power is involved in a direct conflict with any other country. But it increases exponentially when that country is supported by not only one other nuclear power, but multiple nuclear powers. The real ugly part of this whole thing is that many in the West are playing this perverse game of chicken where we can continue to agitate by not really doing enough to push Ukraine towards a diplomatic resolution, instead insisting that they continue to fight, emboldening their incursions into Russia by offering them more high-range weaponry to attack Russian civilians. And the reality of this is, if a nuclear war does break out, the victim of that nuclear attack will not be the United States, it will be Ukraine. So I think it's kind of bizarre that we think in the West we're supporting Ukraine by putting them in a position where it becomes increasingly more likely they will be hit with a nuclear weapon, which will only add to the casualty counts that is numbering in the hundreds of thousands over there, not to mention all the infrastructural damage and the havoc being wreaked on the Ukrainian people. So I've maintained this position since the start of the war. I want an end to the conflict, and I think nuclear war is a very real possibility.
All right. Thank you, non-smoker. Let's go with Tiberius.
Yeah, first things first. Was the whole, the Russians are going to nuke everybody a bluff? Yeah, it was. And granted, the United States has done a lot of this shit where we say we've got a red line in the stand and somebody finally crosses it and we don't do jack shit. This is another example of that. Or at least if anyone isn't familiar, the claim was the Russians said that if anyone actually invaded their sovereign territory, and they've been threatening this since 2000 against the Chinese, they start throwing nukes at people. Obviously, that's not the case with the invasion of Kursk, but granted, these are only 20 miles deep. What it comes down to is, number one, if you actually follow through with this, in theory, you may end the human condition. You can cause literally what we call nuclear winter. You can cause massive radiation outages into places that make them uninhabitable for the next 20 years with cesium-135 or 137. No one wants to actually embody doing that. So as much as people will pomp and bluster, I've said for a long time, I thought that this was a fear that a lot of NATO leadership was very much overestimating and overtaking, because the reality is that the Russians didn't throw the nukes whenever they lost the Soviet Union. You really think they're going to lose it now, or they're going to let them loose now? Unless literally Third Armored Corps is marching on Moscow, I don't see them doing it. So yeah, also it's a bad look. Can you imagine them throwing nukes over losing to Ukraine? It would be the worst, look in history if anyone survived. So yeah, I'm really not a huge thing on this one. I think the escalation management that the NATO has been drastically the wrong call. I think we should have hyper escalated and actually put teeth towards the Russians and show them, it's like, look, we don't like you. We don't want to be on the same playing field as you, and we're going to make sure that Ukraine bleeds you dry, if not join the war ourselves. But that's a whole other conversation. As far as peace, it's not likely. Russia has already stated what their strategic objectives are in this war. They're not even halfway close to getting them. And then when it comes to Ukraine's strategic objectives, they know that surrender is not an option. Like, this is now a deal where this would be asking Texas to surrender. That's not going to happen. So I just don't see this coming. I know there's been chat about peace talks again because, this tactical situation has changed. But the reality is that everyone now has a new door to open in this war. So if anything, we're actually going to see a lot more movement on the battlefield, but we're not going to see anything on the negotiating table. I'm going to pass it off.
Just to be clear, Texas won.
2 hype train. Go ahead and surrender and secede. You know what you need to do.
Not only that, we beat the Napoleon of the West in 1800.
Texas surrendered to the Civil War.
No. That's not what happened. That's not what happened.
And with
the rest of the South surrendered. We were never conquered. In fact, the only time they tried to, we beat the North back.
Sure. And we got the man of the hour about to give his take on it, based Haas.
Okay, so most of what Ty just said, I agree with. I'm thinking NATO has less to worry about with Russia than they have ever had. The last time Russia actually conducted a nuclear test was in 1989, I believe, or 1990. Someone can check me on that. They haven't even tested their nuclear arsenal in 30 plus years. So if that's going to be something you hinge it on, then okay. Now we got to look at the numbers that they have. They maybe have, due to just how hard it is to upkeep your nuclear arsenal, maybe 5% to 10% of active functioning nuclear weapons, which is still a lot. That'd still be like 250 to 500 nuclear bombs if you're considering that. Now, the next part of it is tactical nukes are different than ICBM nukes. They are two separate things. Tactical nuke is meant to change the way a battle works. So could I see them using a tactical nuke? Maybe. What that does is you launch it towards tanks, towards a battlefront, towards a military base. It's not going to have a big yield. It is meant to stop that particular area in its tracks. Now, an ICBM, I don't think Russia can do it. There's very few countries that can.
Excellent. Thank you. And we are at a level 3 hype train. See, all those W words you just spoke got us to a level 3. Oh, we're at a level 4 hype train now. Thank you, everyone. It's been amazing. Already an awesome day. So let's go ahead and open up the conversation and keep these good feelings going.
Does anybody really nobody's advocating for nuking or for any kind of nuclear weapon, right?
No kidding.
I'm not for it. I just don't think it's actually within Russia's capability currently, just due to the fact that upkeep on nuclear weapons is 10.
Dude, the last time the U.S. tested a nuclear weapon was in 1992.
Right. We don't test them very often, but we actually upkeep.
Neither do the Russians.
The Russians don't.
Sorry, say again.
Y'all be against the tactical nuke going off in like Putin's residence?
Dude,
yes.
Putin would be replaced with someone who's way more hawkish and way more aggressive.
Like who?
There's lots of people in the Russian military brass who think that the Russian military is not doing enough.
Yeah, they're more incompetent.
Don't you guys remember the Prigozhin coup last year when Prigozhin tried to overthrow the Russian government? The whole reason he had any support in that is because there's a lot of people within the Russian military, and there's probably a percentage of Russians in the Russian public, I don't have exact data, that feel like the Russian government is not committing enough to the war. You know, that they're not doing a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. They're not bombing out, Kyiv, like, full stop. The notion that Putin, and I'm not trying to say Putin's some great guy, but the notion that he's really like the main reason there's a conflict is a bit of a fallacy.
When it comes to the, when it comes to the coup of last year, at least everything that I'm getting at is that was a response not to Putin, but to Minister Shoigu, is that a lot of people think that he's just blatantly corrupt, and pretty much everything evidence that we have is that he is.
No, you're not wrong. It was Shoigu and Gerasimov that he primarily had an issue with. Right. But what I'm saying is the reason that Wagner supported Prigozhin is not just because Prigozhin was his leader. The reason that all of these men who were fighting for Russia weeks prior in this all-out hell of Bakhmut were willing to turn on their own government is because there's a feeling within these various branches of the military that the government of Russia at large is not doing enough. And it was exemplified by the inability of people like Gerasimov or Shoigu to understand the reality of the battlefield and understand the fact that the Russian men were willing to do whatever it took to win this war, and they felt like they were kind of having this half-hearted support from, the military brass and the government as a whole. So my point is, if you remove Putin, it doesn't stop the conflict. There's plenty of people in the Russian political system who have a way more hawkish take on this.
No, hold on. This is the Russian leadership cast. It's basically a thing of Jenga. And Putin's the only one hanging it, holding it together. Yeah, sure, someone else is going to come in there, and they might be more hawkish. But then, Bob the Builder, the next door, is going to assassinate him because he's greedy. Russia's been doing this for, I don't know, since the Tsars. Even before that. I don't know why you think that somehow in the last 50 years their culture has changed, because we know what's going to happen. If we take out Putin, they're going to eat each other alive, like they always have.
This is fallacious thinking. Okay,
no,
so what you're saying is,
it's historically based.
Let me explain. Okay, well, here's why it's kind of stupid. What you're saying is because the Tsar was assassinated, and because there's been a history of political leaders assassinated in Russia, that it stands to reason that if Putin was assassinated, that the person who replaces him will be assassinated.
Yeah,
and that's totally. First of all, the guy who could possibly become the next president of the United States was almost fucking assassinated a month ago. Does it stand to reason that if he were elected or someone else is elected, it automatically means that they're going to be assassinated because there was an assassination attempt before, or because Kennedy was assassinated? That must mean American political figures.
Not only do I say is it likely, I'm saying we should encourage it. So that, if we go in there, he gets taken out, and the next guy's not to our liking, pull a CIA, have him gone too. It's not like they've already assassinated one of our own presidents. Why can't they go assassinate?
Look, you don't like Putin. I understand. You don't like Putin.
I don't like Russia in general.
My point to you is it's fallacious reasoning to say, one, killing Putin will end the war or end this whole chaotic situation, and two, that killing Putin will result in some sort of collapse of the Russian political system.
Probably
I don't think you know enough about the Russian political system to say that. You're basing that on stereotypes from
No, I'm not. I'm basing it on
don't even fully understand.
Stereotypes on history. First of all, it's not a stereotype if it's based in historical fact, right?
Dude, but U.S. leaders have been assassinated more recently.
So what? Who gives a shit?
So then we have a history of our leaders being assassinated.
Yeah, sure, I guess, but much less regularly than Russia does, who's had a history.
Guys, am I alone in this? That's a very stupid point.
This is the other problem. You're being an apologist. What's bad for Russia is good for the U.S. This is an
That's not true. It's not true. It's not good for regular working people.
Who gives a shit?
Dude, the war's been bad for regular working people.
I hate to break it to you. We don't live in post-scarcity.
Let me build a bridge with you. Let me build. You said what's bad for Russia is good for America.
Dude, good luck. That fucking bridge is not going to get built. This is a very absurd, silly point. Come on.
Look how much fucking money. Look how much money we're dumping into Ukraine right now. Okay, look how much we've dumped in. right?
Well, allegedly we're getting it back.
Like less than 1% of our GDP, bro. Like it's not that much money.
And we're allegedly getting it back.
First of all, I'll check the math on that in a second. But
It's probably a little bit more.
But second of
not
all,
that much.
That's still a fuck ton of money. Like the American GDP, because we're talking about we have a massive economy, number one in the world, right? And then we have like a small slice of that, which is like the government. And we have an even smaller slice of that, which is like government, like federal government spending, discretionary spending. And we are sending a lot of that to Ukraine. And there doesn't seem to be an end in sight. That's the concern. If you would have asked me this like a year ago, same thing when it came to the Israel situation. I was much more hawkish. But over time, I'm beginning to realize that I don't know if there's really an out here. I don't know what the plan is. What's the plan? Is the plan just to fight until the end of time?
Yes. That's hopefully the plan.
The goal here is like not defined. It's the same issue we had in Vietnam. It's the same issue we had in Afghanistan. The goal, we don't have a set military objective, and we're just dumping money into it. And the promises keep coming of as long as it takes, we'll just keep sending money. And you know what that money buys us? It buys us a bunch of dead people. That's what it buys us. It buys us a bunch of dead people. It's not good.
That's a good thing.
It's not good.
That is a good thing.
It's not good.
I'm sorry, I hate to break it to you. This is an adversary. These people aren't our friends.
My money is being stolen from me to fund rockets that are killing people. And in my opinion, this is only acceptable in certain circumstances. And one of those circumstances is a just war in which there is a definitive goal. That when we reach the goal, then it's over. Then we can end it. But
hold on.
We have Trump. We have Trump right now, who is saying like if he gets elected, he's going to go end it. He's going to make peace. Are you against that? Yeah, you're against Trump on that. You think that we should have forever war?
I hope. In fact, I think this is one of the best things that could happen is forever war with Russia, between them and Ukraine, because that means they never get out of their sandbox. This is the evil empire, right? Like Russia is the evil empire. They got the hordes at the gate. This is Genghis Khan and the
Genghis Khan,
like whoever you want to use. This is the evil empire. Like I don't get why you sit here and act like they're not the evil. They are the adversaries.
What are you basing that on? You're just saying that they're
history.
Evil.
They are the evil empire. They're
everything.
What do you think? What do you think started? What do you think? Okay, real quick. If they're the evil empire, they are the Genghis Khan.
They've hated us since day one. Day one.
What started their intervention in Ukraine?
What they claimed?
Yeah, what they claimed.
Well, here, you know what? Here, let's just say the reason why they invaded Ukraine is 100% correct. It was because they were trying to denazify it, and there's ethnic Russians there. Hold on, let's just say. This is what out of Putin's mouth. Let's just say we're Nazis. So you're mad that Nazis and that Russians are killing each other? That seems like a good trade to me. I mean, but that's if you want to take Putin at his word and believe him. He's the one who said that, not me. Now, I don't think the Ukrainians are Nazis. I think the Russians are just evil bastards, and they've always hated us. They always will hate us. This is the adversarial power. Globalism doesn't work. I hate to break it to you. That they're already forming an
globalism doesn't work. You're advocating for a forever war in Eastern Europe, funded by me and you.
Putin agrees with you, by the way. That
it's better than them fighting over here.
Let me.
They're not going to come over here. What are you talking about? Eventually, they will.
You're trolling, right? Yeah. You got to be trolling.
I'm absolutely not trolling.
There's a level where he's definitely being bombastic, but okay, so here at Lactoid, we know what the stated war goal is for our side, or at least for the United States government. They want a free and independent Ukraine that is its own self-determination, that it can actually, and we know where this goes. They want Ukraine to be an EU member, and they want it to be a NATO member.
Yeah, hold on.
That's what,
including Crimea.
I don't know if Crimea is actually on the board or not.
The Ukrainian government has made it absolutely clear that they are they want Crimea back. That's an essential part of the
which they will never get.
Which they will never get. And they have also passed a law saying that they will not negotiate with Putin. So you have a party here who is refusing to negotiate with the enemy by law now. And their war goal
they wanted to negotiate. Sorry to cut you off, but they wanted to go negotiate at the start of the war. They tried to negotiate a peace solution, and Boris Johnson and the West at large basically told Zelensky, listen, if you fight this war, tooth and nail to the bitter end. We'll support you every step of the way. And Zelensky was willing to take that gamble, and that's why almost
It
3
wasn't
years
a
later
gamble.
we're still
I don't
fighting
know.
this war.
Look what the Russians did to Mariupol, and then tell me it was a gamble, dude. Like, the Ukrainians know that they're looking at down the barrel of abject subjugation. Like,
Dude,
Eastern Ukraine is going to get
okay, can I just point something out?
Yeah.
Russia invaded Ukraine initially with like less than 200,000 troops. Ukraine is a country of what, like 40 million fucking people? Do you really think that Putin had a realistic goal of conquering the entirety of Ukraine, not just conquering it, but holding it down, facing a hostile occupation with less than 200,000 troops?
Actually, yes. I believe
Yes,
exactly
I
what he
do.
thought.
Okay,
The idea
so
was to pull
can
in
you
Iraq,
explain that
too.
to me, like strategically? Because I don't know, in World War II, for example, when Nazi Germany invaded Western Poland, they entered with 1.5 million troops.
Well, how many did we send into Iraq, which is a
Well,
population of
Haas is
millions?
trying
We
to get-
sent
Haas
in
is-
okay, but
Haas is trying to
so
say
we sent in
something.
like
I wanna-
100. No, I can answer him. We sent in 160,000, but Iraq is not only a smaller country than Ukraine in population and size of territory.
Well,
They're
the fourth strongest military at the time.
significantly weaker military.
Iraq's
we did that
population.
No, they were the fourth strongest military in the world.
We did that in conjunction with leveling Baghdad through shock and awe. We bombed the fuck out of major city
Just to be
centers.
clear, Iraq is actually about 44 million people, so it is a relatively large country. Now,
Yeah, and
now,
it was the fourth strongest country in the world military.
All right, look,
Sure.
there's about 18
The last I
Sure.
checked, Iraq's
Guys.
population in 2003 when we invaded was just over 20 million.
Okay, look, there's about 18 levels of this. I want to hit like at least stay on like
44
some
million, yeah,
subtopic here and then go down.
27
So I'll
million.
answer your
Yeah.
non-smoker real
That's a lot
quick,
less.
and then we can move on. I know Haas is largely going to be with me on this one, so I hope I can speak for both of us here. What I think the Russian strategic objective was is that they're looking at Ukraine as a fractured state because largely the East and the West did not agree on how the country should be run and was flip-flopping politically since the country has been independent. Secondly, is that you are talking about a country that doesn't have a very vibrant economy, isn't able to afford hardly any kind of major defense budget, doesn't have their own domestic arms industry, and when it comes down to it, the Russians believed, after they had experience in Syria and an experience in Ukraine earlier in Crimea, they've experienced all these major military operations, and they think that they are combat effective. They think they're going to be able to walk in Ukraine, fight a limited resistance, and literally overrun the country in a month. And honestly, most Western analysts thought that was exactly what was going to happen. We were all wrong because the Florida National Guard turned out to be training everybody in Ukraine pretty damn effectively, while the Russians on paper looked really menacing, but all the enlisted kept telling us, hey, they're doing these drills and they look mean, but when it comes down to it, I'm going to just put this out here as a context clue. They're running their drills where they're going in looking out for their own submarines to do the testing, but the submarine's running at full fucking speed, so it's noisy as hell. They're not actually training in a degree of difficulty. They just make it really easy. It is for show. And the problem is that the show convinced their own leadership that they were ready to go. And then they basically hit the wall in the face. I wish that was not the case, but the reality is that Russia was this big paper target all along, and we didn't know it, and they thought it was real too. And so, yes, I think
Putin
Russia walked in this
100%
war.
was real.
Yeah, Russia walked in this being a fucking idiot.
I want to just slightly push back on that and argue that actually, I mean, I think, okay, there's no doubt that the Russian military failed in its objective to basically wipe through Ukraine. And but I do think that there's a factor here which you're not really considering, and that's actually the valiant effort of the Ukrainian military and the Ukrainian armed forces. And the fact that, yes, although they are supported with Western weaponry, they proved themselves to be a pretty formidable foe. It's not merely that Russia underperformed; Ukraine's military drastically overperformed.
I agree,
and I think this is the problem with the argument that I was trying to make before, or I should say, this is the argument that some of you guys were trying to make before that I was trying to push back against, which is the notion that Putin was definitely trying to conquer the entire country. I think that Putin, if anyone, and the Russian military as a whole would be more aware than anyone else that Ukraine would pose a unique challenge to an invasion and a potential taking over the entire country. That's why he only committed less than 200,000 troops, hoping that they could crush basically Ukraine instantaneously by just rushing into Kyiv and then forcing some sort of peace negotiation, which is exactly what they tried to do. Then they were pushed back. My point here is Putin has no interest in annexing Ukraine and taking the whole thing. It would be way too costly in terms of manpower, in terms of actual dollars. It would be probably a catastrophe that might actually result in like a NATO response. So knowing that, I think what Putin tried to do was quickly diffuse the situation and got caught up in it into basically a protracted war that now the U.S. is feeding with the goal, by the way, of depleting Russia's military capacity slowly, bleeding them dry slowly is the whole goal here.
Yeah,
That's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous.
Hold up,
wait a
hold
second.
up.
No, stop. Fuck that. I'm going to tell you some facts here. No, good. I don't give a shit, goddammit. Listen, here's the facts. They released a map showing their planned invasions of other countries, including the Baltic states. Like, this is total cope, total apologia. It's total bullshit what he's doing right now. Russia has sat here and said to they're blue in the face, I want to reestablish the old Soviet territories. They have goals beyond Ukraine. So to sit here and go, he never intended to conquer all of Ukraine is just lying out your ass. Because not only did he intend to conquer it, he intended to reconquer fucking Georgia. He intends to reconquer all the Baltic states. He wants to fucking invade into Poland. These are things he's claimed he wants to do. And he even told Tucker Carlson this straight to his face.
He wants to invade Poland?
Yes, he says he wants to reestablish old Soviet borders. And he sat there and gave his whole speech about his version of Russia history with Ukraine and all this. Like, the idea that this is what he's doing. He's literally going, Putin and the Russian leadership has told us what they're going to do. But none of that's actually true. He actually is some peace-loving hippie that sits in Moscow and plays fiddly.
No, but I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that second part. And I know you're being hyperbolic, and I get it. That's like your thing. But I'm not suggesting at all. Like, I'm seriously not playing Putin apologetics anywhere near the level that people think I am. I just have like a nuanced view of this. And by the way, and I'm hearing Lactoid, his view is sort of closer to mine than anyone else's. It's sort of weird how like I've had this position since the beginning, and now it feels like slowly everybody else is coming to the realization of, oh, wait, maybe this is just a waste of money and it's not about spreading democracy and it's just killing people in another part of the world that doesn't even affect Americans at all whatsoever. In fact, it's actually the entire conflict has hurt the life or had a negative impact on the life of the average American due to the inflationary impact on oil prices and various other things, just the pure cost of paying for weapons. Just want to mention that.
Well, and also the inflation, like the global inflationary effects that came with the disruption in manufacturing from the sanctions, right? The sanctions from Russia on the West, and then also the sanctions from the West onto Russia. Yeah, I don't know. This is something where, again, as I've learned more about the actual facts of how the war started, I've been coming around to the idea that. Again, we can't have a forever war, and this isn't one where there's a undisputed good guy and an undisputed bad guy, because
it's pretty damn close.
But it's not as close as you think. I'm going to get into this a little bit because I think this topic is ripe for this. The thing that triggered Russian involvement was Euromaidan, which was back in 2014, and this was for all intents and purposes, this was a coup. That removed the fairly democratically elected president of Ukraine. Yanukovych's election was monitored by UN observers, and it was deemed to be a free and fair election. Yep. The polling on support for Euromaidan was incredibly split, with various polls putting it around half to a little bit less than half of the country actually supporting it. Now, support for it was incredibly high in Kiev, but was very low in the eastern parts of Ukraine, right, where the Russians obviously were able to quickly sweep in because they had a base level of population support there, or at least population indifference. When you have a democratically elected government be couped, and the areas of that country that voted for that president suddenly not want to be part of that country anymore, not suddenly, they now have a reason to try to act to not be part of that country anymore. when polling before, including UN polls from 2011 and 2012 and 2013, showing that Crimea, for example, the majority of residents there didn't want to be part of Ukraine. They wanted to leave and join Russia. It's not completely unreasonable, just like the US revolution was not unreasonable. It's not completely unreasonable for the people there to say, well, you just completely disregarded our representation. We voted for this guy, and you just illegally couped him. The Constitution says you can't do what you did, but you did it anyway. We want to leave. That's not completely unreasonable. It's not. And
okay, look.
That's what triggered Russian involvement. That was the action, right? That's what caused the Little Green Men to go in, was that state of affairs. And now we want to sit back and say, well, there's nothing precipitated this. It was an invasion that fell out of the sky. That's not what happened.
I didn't say that, but I will say there's been a level of like tic-tac escalation here. But I want to give you another piece of data here that maybe you missed or maybe at least you haven't brought up. So there was the turmoil of 2014 and even in 2015 with the Little Green Men and all that. What has happened since then is that Russian, or basically a pro-Russian government, has become incredibly unpopular within Ukraine. Remind you, they did have another free and fair election in 2019 where Zelensky was elected for the first time. And that was a blowout of almost 75%. Is that most of Eastern Ukraine actually
it's not going to be the occupied territories.
He ran on a peace platform, by the way. You have to remember that when Zelensky won that election, the entire thrust of his campaign was resolving this crisis in the Donbass, which he not only failed to do, but he's actually presided over the political reality that resulted in. And listen, I'm not one of those people that entirely blames Zelensky here, but he has been the leader during this breakout of like a 3-year war that I think it's kind of unquestionable probably has worsened relations between people in East Ukraine and West Ukraine.
Wait. So hold on. Wait. Let me ask a question, because you just said something really interesting there. Zelensky ran on a peace platform.
Yes,
he did. His goal was to appease Russia to make the fighting stop. Right. It was to be peaceful, and he couldn't get it done because Russia was the aggressor. That's what happened.
I stopped you. I stopped you because you do realize there was a conflict in East Ukraine before Russia invaded, right? You knew that?
Sure, yeah. I do.
Okay, so that was the peace platform Zelensky ran on, was resolving the war in the Donbass.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was a war where they were shelling on both sides.
Russia.
Sounds like appeasing Russia.
Yeah, you had civilians in Donetsk and Luhansk getting shelled by the Ukrainian military.
I'm sorry, Lactoid. So resolving the war in the Donbass would be appeasing Russia?
Yeah, because he was giving up basically. He wants peace. And then all of a sudden,
do you have any idea what the war in the Donbass was about?
They had Russian
whatever of Donetsk and Luhansk.
Yeah, they were trying to secede. They also
why were they trying to secede?
Why is an important question.
Why is a good question. Why? You tell me what
because their president was cooed.
They cooed and fucking undemocratically removed a leader from power who was elected in a free and fair election.
By the way, Yanukovych's numbers surprisingly, he was polling highest where? In Crimea and the Donbass. That's where his base of support was. Of course, those areas are going to be more pissed off than the rest of Ukraine when their lead. It would be like, let's say January 6th was successful. Californians are going to be more pissed off than like people from West Virginia. And by the way, if there was like some kind of illegal coup in America, I don't know. Like there potentially could be an argument for certain states to secede at that point, right?
Which a lot of them probably would.
Yeah. Would you say that the U.S. government would be justified in conducting anti-terrorist operations then to stop?
I think objectively speaking,
in the United States at that point.
I think objectively speaking, if there were a secession, that the government would try to crack down on it to preserve the integrity of the union.
Oh, and that so like Ukraine was doing, they were trying to preserve the integrity of the
I'm not saying that Ukraine was wrong in trying to preserve the union. What I'm suggesting to you is that there was a war in the Donbass, and Zelensky ran as a candidate who would try to resolve that. And you seem to think resolving that would be somehow
I'm saying there is no resolving
which is retarded.
No, there is no resolving this with an aggressive adversarial power. This is what I keep trying to tell you. Whether or not there had been this
East
coup,
Ukraine was not an aggressive
whether or not,
adversarial power. Those are the
yes, listen,
Ukrainian people.
listen, eventually, at some point, they were going to find a reason to invade.
So then why not just let
that's
them
what's going to
secede?
happen.
Why not let them secede then?
Because it's a domino thing. Once you give them one little, it's like give a mouse a cookie. You ever read that story?
This
give
is,
a mouse
dude,
a
you
cookie.
can't use
He's going to want a
fucking
glass of milk.
childish analogies to explain
It's
complex
facts.
things
I'm
you
sorry,
don't
it is.
understand.
Well, it's not complex things I don't understand. It's real simple things that you seem to try to make complex.
No,
that
it's
aren't
not
really complex.
simple. You
Well,
just
yes,
don't
it absolutely
understand
is.
any of this
If you
stuff at all.
appease
You don't
evil
understand it on a
dictators, if you
fundamental level.
appease evil, I do
Or a
understand it at a
complex
fundamental.
level,
I
or
do
any
understand
level,
it.
in
I
between.
specialize this in college. I know exactly what the fuck I'm talking about. Listen, Tanky.
What did you specialize in college?
Just because you're a political theory, so just sit here and go like, hey, when you're going to go sit here and go, hey, I'm going to be a tanky apologist for an authoritarian government, which is what you're doing. You're sitting here acting like he's not.
I'm not
There's
even.
hold on, here's something interesting. Have you noticed that all the surrounding countries around Russia, even the Baltic states are now talking about sending troops in there because they're so drastically opposed. Because all of these countries, so this is what this guy's telling you. All right, this is how
I'm
this
not,
honest.
dude,
This is what you're doing. This is what you're doing. You're literally sitting here and going, I know more about the Russian politics than every single country surrounding
I just
Russia.
know more than you.
Well, you're wrong. So you don't know shit. So
I just know more
you're
than
an
you.
idiot. You're wrong. Once again, you're wrong. So every country around Russia is sitting here going,
Dude,
holy
my 10th
shit, we
graders
need to
know more
arm
than
up.
you.
Well, your 10th graders are retarded and you're the reason the American education system is failing.
Okay,
Holy
well,
shit.
dude,
So anyway, if you just let me finish, every single country around Russia
This has an
is
ending?
going, well, no, because you keep interrupting here. If we go, every single country around Russia has sit here and said, hey, we need to send troops in. We're arming up because Russia is talking about being aggressive and invading. No one's
Dude,
going,
you're just
it's because they're sitting
filibustering. You
back.
don't have a
I'm
point
not
here.
filibustering. I do, bro. What the Baltic states just
throwing
said.
everything at
I
the wall
literally
that you
have.
can and hoping
No,
something
I'm not.
sticks. None of it is making
All of this
sense.
is true. You're
You've
just
lost.
lying. You're literally lying.
Wrap it up. Wrap it up. Wrap it
First
up.
of all, if Ty mods me at all, I'm fucking never coming back. So shut the fuck up, Ty. Secondly,
I'd still like you to wrap it up, though.
I will wrap it up. What he's doing, he's sitting here saying, I'm not throwing another hole. There's a reason every single country around them is defending themselves and getting ready to move like they're an aggressive power because Russia is an aggressive power. So who's more likely to be correct? Every single country around Russia or this tanky?
I don't even think that you're totally wrong about the Baltic states or Finland wanting to protect themselves following this invasion. And that's why I think it was a major geopolitical misstep by Putin. I don't defend it. That's the thing you're not understanding. What I'm trying to tell you is, and we're going to go back to the original point, which you clearly were wrong about, and that's why you're turning it into a bigger argument about the Baltics. And that is that Zelensky ran on a peace platform because he wanted to resolve a conflict within his country that would ultimately be to the benefit of Ukrainians as a whole. It wasn't to help Russia, right? And, by your logic, again, if the East is a lost cause, well, then why not just let them become independent? And the whole thinking that you have of like, well, it's a domino theory and blah, 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 blah. Dude, you're espousing like Cold War talking points that I get the comparison, but they just don't apply here. It has nothing to do with the East Ukraine separatist movement. That only started, as Lactoid mentioned, because, the West meddled in Ukraine and they sort of supported, which was a broadly popular movement, by the way, but they supported a movement to oust this president who was democratically elected and then, in an illegal coup, and forced him to leave the country, and that caused a civil war. So for Ukraine to recover from that, you would need a candidate who promotes peace. And, look, you can't blame the whole thing again on Zelensky, but he is presided over anything but peace.
All right, I want to get back in on this for a second, and hopefully I can let Haas get into, because I know you want to get in on this as well. Look, I'm not going to say this isn't like sticky and messy, but I'll put it in this regard. Number one, why did Eastern Ukraine not secede or not be allowed to secede? In the same way that we didn't allow the South to secede, they fought a war for secession, and we told them, "Fuck that! You're going to join the Union," and Ukraine did the same thing. So if we're going on precedent here, we don't have any leg to room to stand on letting them secede anyway. Number two, this is kind of a morals and values conversation. It's like, do you want to be like pro-American, pro-Western, or do you want to largely support the Russian sphere? I think that's a night and day conversation for me. I'm actually really surprised that Lactoid is taking up the stance that he does, because it's like, I understand where he doesn't like taxes and I understand where he doesn't like people dying, but I mean, this is one of the more black and white instances in geopolitics that I've seen in the last 100 years. It really is that cut and dry, even if it's the messy, convoluted shit where certain people want certain things. I would be very interested to see what the polling would be in eastern Ukraine since the war has begun, after seeing the Russians literally level places that they're supposed to be protecting.
Oh, they've done it, Ties. They've done it already. It's
I
not good for
I look, I'm gonna be real. I'm sure that there's polls out there, but
no, they've done it. It is really bad for Russia, like really bad. It does not look good at all.
I mean, I can believe that. The problem is that the validity of those polls are going to be within question, because you're taking them in an occupied war zone right now.
Yeah, but then there's no poll that will ever tell us anything, so it's sort of irrelevant.
Well, there is one poll we can look at, and that's the UN polls prior to the invasion, prior to Euromaidan, in Crimea specifically. And this is on Wikipedia. You can very easily find this, right?
Yeah.
The people of Crimea, before all of this, before the Green Men went in, overwhelmingly supported specifically the question of leaving Ukraine and joining Russia. There was a smaller group, but it was the second largest, which favored like independent or autonomous status. And then there was like a tiny percent, like 9 or 10%, that actually even favored staying in Ukraine at all. There was a reason why Russia was so easily able to take over that entire area without people dying, right? The reason is because the people there supported them. And they were very easily able to walk in, gain the support of all the people there. It's ours. It was very easy for them.
Also, the Ukrainian military was a joke during that time. So,
well, dude, the Ukrainian Navy literally defected to Russia. The Ukrainian Navy station in Crimea, like 100% of them defected to Russia. They had no interest in fighting Russia, dude. Guys, the people in this part of the world, many of them consider themselves Russian before they do Ukrainian. And look. There isn't a major distinction between the two historically, but there are distinctions, and a lot of the people there feel, look, they can tolerate being part of Ukraine if there's a government in place that, one, is democratically represents them, and two, is willing to work with Russia in the same manner it's willing to work with Europe. And, they've been placed in a position where they feel like, hey, the winds are blowing one way and we're going in the other direction. And that's sort of how this conflict started. And, it's something that could have been avoided. But I just want to say one thing to Tiberius, just to clarify, dude. I don't think for a second that they should have allowed, the Lugansk and Donetsk to become independent. I'm not suggesting that would have been good. What I'm saying is, by Gibbs's logic, you should have allowed them to just, defect if resolving the dispute is somehow helping Russia.
Yeah, so, there's a level where I really agree with where Gibbs' stance is. As an American, I don't want to see the advancement of Russian interests. On the other side of that, or at least Russian interests under this particular government, let me lay my cards out on the table just so I can at least get this out of the way. I really was hoping back in the 2000s that Russia would actually turn the corner and join the Brotherhood of Nations, having Russian oil fund their education system, fund technological advancement in their own country. Russia could be literally on track to being the most wealthy country on the planet. They've got huge natural resources. They have plenty of room for industry. If they actually educated their people, good God, these are the people who went to space before we did, or put a man in space before we did. This is a country that can move. And then what did we see this turn into? We saw this country turn into something that reminds me a little bit too much of Mussolini's government. It's literally the people that we gained up on to fight. I'm just shocked. It's I really was hoping Russia would go a different way. So all right, cool. We're at this point now. But
wait, Tiberius, sorry to interrupt you, man, but Russia was at its peak post-Soviet collapse as an economic and political power under Putin. Prior to that, it was a totally neutered and impoverished country where hundreds of thousands of people were killing themselves and drinking themselves to death in the former Soviet subway systems. And that's because the country was basically sold off to oligarchs who were ultra corrupt and only interested in their own, selfish gains. And Putin, listen, I'm not saying Voldemort is good, Jesus fucking Christ, but
No, I
what
get
I'm
it.
suggesting is that Putin did lead Russia into an era of economic prominence. And it's interesting, a number of you guys, this is probably where me and Lactoid depart, are like, you believe in this sort of neoliberal vision of the world. This kind of goes into the second topic a little bit, but neoliberal vision of the world where free trade reigns supreme, and that's how countries will get along with each other and skip and frolic through the fields and rainbows and whatever. And Russia joined the World Trade Organization in 2012, has basically, tried to make its place at the table in the neoliberal world order. They just won't adjust to the social norms of the West. They have a different view of how culture is and society should run, etc. And, it's a very nationalistic sort of political system, blah, blah, blah. The point being, that whole neoliberal approach to neutralize and make Russia nice failed. That's actually how you got this strongman in Putin.
Yeah.
Or at least it came in conjunction.
So there's definitely levels where I agree with that, and there's some levels where I don't. So I get why Putin rose to power. He's an autocrat, but let's be real. Basically, what Russia had after the collapse of the Soviet Union was the recipe for fascism. You had incredible civil strife. You had economic collapse. You had literally not too far from Weimar Germany, economic conditions. So I get why they put the strongman in power, and it even makes some sense where even under the horrible oligarchs that they sold themselves out to, Russia actually had political stability under Putin, and therefore they were actually able to economically develop. Okay, I get that. I believe in realpolitik. I can say, hey, look, even though I don't like the guy, certain things were better under him than Boris Yeltsin, right? So cool, got that. There's three layers here. The first layer is like what's better for Russia, what's better for Ukraine, and then what's better for like us as Americans looking at it from our perspective, right? I wish Russia had turned the other way, and maybe that's our fault. We didn't reach out to Russia in the same way that we did for like Hungary and Poland in the 90s, right? We weren't trying to get them to join the Brotherhood of Nations in the same way.
They wanted to join NATO.
There was that open conversation. At least I don't know how real that was, but like, did Putin actually ask Clinton in 2000 to join NATO?
Putin repeatedly inquired with not just the Clinton administration, but the George W. Bush administration. He had a great relationship with George W. Bush, and he felt like they were inches away from either, if not Russia joining NATO, some sort of strategic partnership to fight terrorism worldwide.
Right. And so here's the problem. From their point of view, and maybe even for a little bit from the Ukrainian point of view, was that a mistake? Is not letting them kind of join the family a little bit more? Maybe, because we know what Russia's big concern here is. It's security. And they look at the West as an antagonistic force to them that will slowly pick them apart. And as much as we like to say that NATO is a defensive pact, the one thing that the Russians actually pointed out that it's real is that it's not always defensive. When NATO mobilized against Gaddafi back in 2011, that was the part where Russia literally started freaking the fuck out. Because they're like, oh, you guys really aren't defensive. You will go after people you don't like, and you will do it with force. That was when the relationship actually started breaking down completely. And I agree with some level of like coulda, woulda, shoulda. The problem is that we are where we are now, right? So, okay, do we acknowledge that we fucked up? Sure. Like, is there a room to change at this point? I don't see how we do that. We've literally put Russia in the antagonistic camp, and now we have to deal with the consequences of that. I don't know how we reverse that relationship. And unfortunately, like, I'm not trying to do the, what's the term here? Like, sunk cost fallacy, but it literally is, I don't see another way forward outside of just acknowledging that Russia is the great Satan again until
they are the great Satan.
Until they actually dissolved again.
Hold on. So this is why you're right about one thing. They are the great Satan, right? And Putin's demonstrated that, and like he's done it time and time again. This is why I don't buy this narrative about the president. So what was the reason why the president got coup d'etat in fucking Ukraine. It's because he was a Russian puppet. The people didn't want him. He was also accused of regional cronyism. He was putting people in there from the Donbass that were all Russian puppets, and he got forced out by a great majority of his country. And then, yes, that is what happened.
Not a great majority of his country.
Yes,
that's not true at all.
A great majority. There's a big reason why Zelensky got like overwhelming support afterwards. And here's another thing, and we can keep going in this. If you look at all these other countries, look at Georgia, look at Chechnya, look at where he invaded. They still control all the parts of Georgia. They didn't give it back. There's been one of the little governments they recognize over there. There's been controversial agreements made between them and the Azerbaijan government. Basically, they've just given Russia control of leased and sold key assets, relinquished control over the borders. So, like, all the things you're saying, they just use this as a pretext to come in. It's like, these guys we're supporting this group, and then they invade, and then they take control. Chechnya, they installed a dictator. They support the Belarusian dictator. They did this in Georgia. Like, they did this in Crimea. They've done this in the Donbass. They set up little separatist people. They take over. It's their hybrid warfare. That's literally what it was being called for a while. The little green men, like, this is how they were getting away with it. And, like, y'all are sitting here going, oh, it's us, we're the aggressors. No, these guys are always going to be against us. Sometimes you got to put them down. And this is one of those cases where we got to put them down, and they're never going to be our friends. If you don't believe in going in there and taking them out, then the next best case is perpetual war, where they never get off the ground and they can't come over here, because eventually that's their goal, is to be the dominant world power. And I hate to break it to you, multipolarity will never work. It's never going to work. It's a bad plan. Anybody that thinks that doesn't understand history, and they're brain dead. So, like, that's the facts. Everybody always wants to be the one at the top. And so guess what? Russia wants to be the one at the top. China wants to be the one at the top. That's why they're forming this little union, because they know together they might be able to stand a chance against us. And y'all just want to sit here and play with your bean while fucking Russia just takes over land left and right willy-nilly. And it's really sad. It's really sad.
I'll back him up a little bit on this one too. So the part where the relationship broke down for the Russians was Gaddafi getting ousted. The part where the relationship probably broke down for us was the 2008 invasion of Georgia. The State Department flew into a whirlwind frenzy because any goodwill that we had towards the Russians largely evaporated at that point. So there's levels where it's like it's a tick for tack escalation to where we were always kind of getting here. And there's a level where I can't help but ask if Gibbs was right. In the regard that no matter how we went about this, we were always going to get here one way or another. Because was Russia actually going to turn into something that the United States or the West felt like it was something that was worth dealing with? And maybe if they weren't invading their neighbors, that would be a different conversation. They were working more on funding their education system than they were their defense department. But the reality is that, like, we keep crossing these red lines where the West and the Russians wouldn't get together. And I don't see any real good faith on either side to actually advert from this path for the better part of the last 15 years. All right. Getting over to at least where Lactoid was, and I know that we were kind of bouncing all over the place, but this shit is complicated. I think we try to make it easy because there's some levels where we can. But the reality is that we have to acknowledge that, one, if there was a potential, we made a mistake and we went the wrong way. And now we have to deal with the consequences. So, Lactoid, our stated goal, and I believe, and I'll outline this, is that the United States' stated goal is a free and independent Ukraine. I don't think we give a shit if Crimea is part of that or not, but the thing that we are very, very adamant on is that Ukraine has a peace on their terms. So if they want to give up...
Those are their terms. Sorry to cut you off, but their terms are getting Crimea back.
Yeah, so that's... Don't get me wrong, that's messy.
No. Well, there needs to be, and I'm not meaning to sound like America first here, but there needs to be peace on our terms, because we're the ones bankrolling it. And the peace on our terms, I think the only thing that makes sense at this point is there's going to have to be some give and take. I agree that there needs to be some kind of. I'd be okay with requiring that Ukraine joins NATO. I think that does need to be something. We can't have a situation like this.
And they could keep Crimea if Russia gives up all their nukes.
But
that's fair.
well, hold on. But again, and I posted a map in the group chat. I would also, in exchange for this, the currently occupied territories are surrendered, and then the war is over. Right? That's a hell of a deal, right? In my opinion. Now, maybe
You're
I'm wrong.
probably not getting that either.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe my long shot, which by the way is less of a long shot than what I like the max goals of whatever either country won at this point, which it's going to lead to war forever. But I think it's somewhat realistic goal, and this is why I think America needs to like wave its big dick around here a little bit, right? We show up, we say, look, here's the terms. They're relatively favorable to you, and they're favorable to us. If you don't take it, we are going to triple our aid to Ukraine. And if Ukraine refuses to take it, we're cutting off all aid. That's the terms. Now, either one of these situations, I think, is unacceptable to both countries, right? I think this is a way, and again, using leverage here, to force a peace. Now, but there needs to be some acknowledgement here. And I posted the map in the group chat here. There needs to be some acknowledgement. Look at the fucking map. Look at where Yanukovych pulled strongest. And by the way, the only two factors that matter here is Yanukovych was elected in a free and fair election. You can look that up by UN observers, international observers, and he was removed unconstitutionally.
We trust them. We trust the UN.
Yes,
right?
I trust in about
Dude.
whether or not the pro-Russian candidate won in Ukraine. Absolutely.
Yeah, bro. Doesn't Russia have a seat in the Security Council in the UN? Yeah, I'm sure we could trust
The
them.
U.S.
Okay,
the U.S.
dude,
the West has like how many fucking seats? And the U.S. has one too. We've got permanent seats.
Yeah.
Dude, so by that logic, you can't trust any Ukrainian election.
Yeah, I mean, I don't trust the UN as far as I can throw fucking all 5 of y'all combined if it's a great distance. No, I don't trust
He's
them at all.
saying, though, that
Seems
there
like a
was a
good
supervision
segue.
of the election by an
So I'm gonna
international
let
body.
Yes, there was a
everybody get-
supervision of the election, and it was free and fair. And he was unconstitutionally removed. The Ukrainian constitution requires that 3/4 of parliament vote to remove a sitting president. It's like the impeachment procedure, and they failed to get those votes that were required to remove him, but they removed him anyway. They said that he fled the country and thus gave up his seat, which, by the way, there's no precedent for. It's a ridiculous assumption. The idea that, like, if Biden happens to fly to China, then all of a sudden, like, oh, well, whoever jumps, you move your feet, you lose your seat, whoever jumps in there. And it also neglects to point out the whole
Wait, are you willing to tell
the
China
whole
that
reason
about
why
Tibet?
the whole reason why China's invasion of Tibet was entirely unjustified, right? I can absolutely, but specifically when it comes to Yanukovych, he didn't even leave the country by the time that they were declaring him having abandoned his post. He had to flee Kiev because his car was getting shot at, because there was gunfire in the streets. There was back and forth fighting. It was urban warfare between the federal police and rioters and in this case, by every meaning of the term, insurrectionists. They were armed with guns and they were shooting at the police and they were moving in formations against the police to capture government buildings. Holy shit. Like, this was absolutely urban warfare. And the result of this was a democratically elected president was removed from power. And the places in which he had the most support then rebelled against the sitting government. This was predictable. Of course, this was predictable, and this isn't one. I by the way, it was said before, like, the West engineered this. I'm a little bit more skeptical of that in terms of, like, I don't know if the U.S. actually, like, directed Euromaidan. I'm skeptical of that claim.
I hope we did.
Maybe
No, they worked in conjunction with separatists. I think there was a legitimate, or not separatists. Sorry, the Maidan protesters. They worked in conjunction with them. I think that was a mass popular movement for sure. It wasn't like the U.S. just created Maidan, but
it was popular in the west of Ukraine, not the east.
But Russia's doing this too. That's
totally.
brought up the Georgia situation because Russia's tactic. This is the same thing we argued about last
Before we
night.
do this, I want to get to the next topic. So let's get to closing statements on this one before we get into a whole new exchange. So
Sure.
anybody wants closing
I'll
statements, run it
I'll
after
finalize
non-smoker was talking and then you interrupted, so you can go after non-smoker.
Sure.
Okay. Wait. Just, you want me to finish what I was saying, or do the closing statement now?
You can do both.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I had a question for Lactoid, but maybe I'll ask it and then work that into
I'll answer it
whatever.
in my closing.
Right. Oh, perfect. Okay. So look. So I feel like the most reasonable person here is me, but second to that is Lactoid, right? And I would say to Lactoid, the notion of trying to strike a peace deal is not only smart, it's sort of like prudent and wise, on multiple levels, right? It's a good idea, okay? But the notion that we're going to dictate the terms of peace to Ukraine is probably a necessity towards achieving peace, or it's a necessity precondition of achieving peace. We have to tell the Ukrainians what the terms are because, quite honestly, like they're willing to fight tooth and nail as long as possible, so long as we continue supporting them. But I do think that the idea that we're going to dictate to Russia what the terms of peace are, I think it's a fool's errand. There's no reason for Russia to listen to anything we have to say. They're occupying a significant percentage of Ukrainian territory. And, it doesn't appear, even with Ukraine's incursion into Kursk, it doesn't appear that the Russians are all that close to losing that territory. In fact, with the Kursk incursion, it looks like there are opportunities now for Russia to push even further. However, I would say that if you would jump back at that and say, well, we'll triple the aid to Ukraine to continue fighting Russia, we just end up in a worse predicament than what we have now. It's a more protracted war where more people are dying. That's more expensive for Americans. It's like a worst case scenario. And so, look, I think the solution here is obvious. We're going to have to allow Ukraine to pursue peace with Russia simply by withdrawing aid, right? And they're going to have to unfortunately come to some sort of peace terms with Russia that are really decided by Russia. And that's honestly not what I want. I think that could have been avoided had this whole thing, been squashed at the start of the conflict like Putin and Zelensky wanted it to, like Naftali Bennett wanted it to. Look, this is a tragedy. Hundreds of thousands of people are dead. Villages, cities destroyed and leveled. It's sad. In many ways, I look at it as like like some sort of civil genocide, right? That's going on of the Slavic people. And I hope it ends soon. And this all started with a discussion about nuclear weapons, which we managed to just totally avoid here. And I still say that the realistic possibility that Russia implements some sort of tactical nuclear weapon in its war against Ukraine, the likelihood of that is only increasing by the day. And that's scary, and I don't want that. And I hope the war ends soon on whatever terms.
Thank you. Gibbs.
Yeah, the whole idea, first of all, if you know anything about the region, then you know that they've been sitting here playing both sides for a long time. Russia, the United States, everybody. We've not been friends for a very long time. And the idea that, this is all just done by the people in Ukraine, done by the people in Chechnya, done by the people in Georgia, and Russia's just this victorious, wonderful power that's coming, looking out for the interest of ethnic Russians is total bullshit. It's total bullshit. There's a reason why Chechens are still fighting the government that Russia has put in power today. They're still fighting it. In fact, they're fighting it so much that there are reports of Chechens fighting in Syria against President Assad and Russian forces there in hopes that they can overthrow Assad and install a new, more pro-Chechen government, right? This is how much the people that are there under Russia hate Russia, right? They hate the Russian puppets governments. They hate the Russians. Ukraine's the same, where, they might have found a few people that thought they were ethnically Russian, and then Russia used them to, sympathize. You know who else did that? That was the same excuse, which is interesting that Putin wanted to talk about denazifying Russia, Ukraine, because it was Hitler that did the same thing, talking about certain countries saying, hey, there are ethnic Germans here, and we need to protect them in these regions. That's the same thing. It's echoing the same language. It's echoing the same precedent. And this is why I differ from the MAGA group, for sure, as a Republican. If we're going to sit here and we're just going to let the evil empire keep growing, who's clearly opposed to our interests, only bad shit's going to come of it. It's something like, it's like when you get a wound, and you just let it fester. That's what's happening. It's fester. Fester, bad. You don't want anything festering, and that's what's happening. They're just sitting here, bubbling up, getting power, seeing how far the U.S. is going to let them go, seeing how far NATO is going to go, seeing where they could claim their ethnic Russians live, where they could take, and that's what they keep doing. And if you think they're going to stop at Ukraine, you're wrong. If you think they're going to stop with the Baltics, you're wrong. There's a reason all the countries around them go want to invade. It's just like the other day when we were debating the Korean topic on one of these panels, and we asked the guy if he knew more than the South Korean president. president about Korean relations, and the guy was like, "Oh well, that's what they're doing here. They're saying they know more than all these diplomats that are involved in the region, and they know more about what Russia's intentions are, even though Russia has told us a million times they want to reestablish the boundaries of the Soviet republics. It's ridiculous."
All right, Lactoid.
Yeah, so one of the reasons why I don't know. I stand for the topic of the discussion. I do stand convinced that the likelihood of nuclear war at this stage is relatively low. It's not something that I'm particularly concerned about. I think that the Russians have too much to lose from using nuclear weapons at this point, and that's really going to remain unless there is a significant change in the battlefield. Right? We do have an invasion in the Kursk region. If that expands and you start seeing major cities threatened, perhaps the calculation changes. I'm not sure. But based on what we're seeing right now, it's hard to make predictions on this war because I've been wrong in the past. But it does seem as though the state of the war is one that Russia is not particularly upset with, at least the war. I understand their global positioning is being threatened, but they are making advances. A lot of people are talking about the Kursk offensive, but very few people are talking about the fact that the Russians are making relatively significant advances in the east into the Donetsk region. So that is what is happening. The Russians are capturing territory as we speak. What I'm mostly concerned about here is peace, right? Because we're spending a fuck ton of money in this war and we're getting a lot of dead bodies. And to answer non-smokers' question as to, well, how do we get peace with the sort of non-workable solution of telling Russia how they should make peace? I think honestly, the problem with your solution is that there needs to be something in place to prevent this from happening again. There needs to be something in place, and I'm convinced that Russia will not invade a NATO country for obvious reasons. Now, we obviously will need to throw them a bone because they're not giving up Crimea, and they have no incentive to give up the territory they've already taken thus far. And Ukraine's not going to take it all back. It's just not going to happen. So here are the scenarios that I'm running through my head, right? There is worst case scenario for the West, which is something that I'm concerned about, which is that we say no peace, we remain pig-headed, we keep throwing guns at Ukraine, and then Ukraine runs out of manpower, and we have a Vietnam 2 or Afghanistan 2, where the entire government there collapses, the Russians sweep in, and now the entirety of Ukraine is in the control of the Russians. That could happen. It's happened in Afghanistan and it happened in Vietnam. That could happen here. That's bad. That's bad. We can't let that happen. Another problem is we have a forever war for the next 20 years, like we did in Afghanistan, like we did in Vietnam. That's also a terrible idea. That's a terrible ending. We can't have that. But at the same time, I want to prevent future wars from happening. What better way to do that than put the rest of Ukraine as part of a defensive alliance that will guarantee that war won't happen there again? That's what I want to see. I want to end this war quickly, but I also don't want to set up the peace in such a way that we're just going to have another war in 5 years again. I want to have a lasting peace, and I think that the best way to make a lasting peace right now is to acknowledge some of the concerns when it comes to the territory, make concessions, and then demand a permanent end to the war in the inclusion of Ukraine into some kind of defensive alliance, and then we don't have to worry about that part of the world anymore. Because if Ukraine is part of NATO, Russia's got nowhere else to go, right? They are surrounded on all sides, at least in the West, by NATO countries at that point. It's over. Like there is a way to end conflict in this region now. But for some reason right now, we seem to be very hard pressed to simply have another forever war, just like we did before in Afghanistan and just like we had before in Vietnam. And I don't know, I'm sick of seeing body bags, and I'm sick of seeing my taxes go up, and I'm sick of having to pay so fucking much for groceries. I think we can do better.
All right. Let's go with Haas.
Okay, so I'm going to take off a little bit of nuance here. So I believe anything up until February 20th, 2022 kind of doesn't matter at this point. Once that happened, gloves were off. Fuck Russia. They deserve to get their shit pushed in. With that being said, I do think that we should actually put more pressure on Russia on all fronts, to be honest. And I don't think whatever Lactoid's talking about is peace plan with Putin. Putin is irrational at this point. He is a top-down leader. He takes all of his info from advisors who are generally not telling him the full story because they're not getting told the full story from the people below them. It is a completely different explanation of how the government and everything works in Russia. It's not the same as here. So if you think you can talk with a rational Putin, you're just full of shit and you don't understand how the
Right. Tiberius.
Okay, so as far as the original topic, I'm kind of on the opposite side of Smoker on this one. I'm not worried about tac nukes because it makes no sense to tac nuke your own place or actually nuke the place that you're trying to occupy. I'm far more worried about strategic nukes. I'm far more worried about the Russians being like, "Hey, look, you violated our security. We can't win this war because of the fact that you guys are just throwing in your lot with them. So we're just going to nuke every major capital in the West." I'm actually far more afraid of that long term than I am of tactics. When it comes to Lactoid's ultimatum, at the glance of it, I'm largely with Gibbs and with Haas here. I think this is a joke, but in the interest of decency, I would be okay with actually forwarding that as saying, "Hey, look, we're actually trying to get committed to peace," and I would say, "Hey, look, here's the terms. Ukraine is going to have to give up Donetsk. They're going to have to give up Luhansk. They're going to have to give up Crimea. On the other side of that, Russia's going to have to deal with the fact that Ukraine's a NATO member, they're an EU member, and 3rd Armored Corps is going to be sitting in eastern Ukraine waiting for them to cross the border. If Lactoid's okay with signing off on that, I will happily send that ultimatum. The reality is that I don't think Lactoid gets the idea that both sides are going to reject that. It's not just going to be the Russians. It's not just going to be the Ukrainians. They're both going to reject it. They don't want peace. And the reality is that as much as people don't like seeing dead bodies and don't like praying more for their groceries, ethics and values are on the table here. You're talking about a whole united Ukraine that the United States would not do the same thing. We wouldn't give up Texas or New Mexico or California to Mexico because, we were looking at losing within 5 years. When it comes to the Russians believe that we are the bad guys, that we are not going to put their interests forward, and we're slowly going to strangle them to death. And they're fucking right. They're absolutely right. So the reality is that we have two peoples and two factions who don't want to work with each other. And I think we just need to accept that we are on a team, and we need to commit to the team. And it's either at minimum we're going to do the ultimatum part anyway, where we triple funding to the Ukrainians, or we just say fuck it, Russia. If you want to keep fighting this, then we're going to join, because this shit is not acceptable in the modern world on people who want to be on our team, and we will defend them with force.
Epic. So we're going to move on to the next topic because I think that was pretty productive and a lot was said. Got the best people in here for this. And thank you all for being here tonight. We've been having a great night. Fun in the chat, fun in the panel. So moving on to, is the U.S. gaining benefit from being the world police, or does the EU need to pay its fair share? Time to reset the U.S. trade agenda. The strongest argument for rebooting the U.S. trade policy ultimately may not be geopolitics, nor even the economic argument that trade deals will help an already strong U.S. economy. Instead, the best argument is that trade is a key element of solving global challenges that affect us all, like the green energy transition and the risks of AI and the digital economy. Over the past 3 years, U.S. Trade Representative Katherine Tai and National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan have worked to articulate a worker-centered trade policy while arguing for a new Washington consensus in the U.S. International economic policy that will foster global investment and cooperation on issues like climate and development. Tai, Sullivan, and other U.S. officials have succeeded in laying out a vision for American industrial policy, one that has attracted hundreds of billions of dollars of announced U.S. investment in the U.S. computer chip manufacturing and clean energy technology. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has popularized the concept of friendshoring, the idea that U.S. allies and partners can benefit as a multinational corporations diversify away from China. This term first appeared in the 2021 White House report on supply chains. And when it comes to the brass tacks of the trade deals, tariff lines, the paperwork that companies have to file at the border, and other mechanics, US President Joe Biden's administration has not articulated a coherent agenda. At times, the administration has tried to use the specter of China's economic threat to generate support for trade deals. One notable example is a signature Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, which is intended to strengthen our economic relations between the United States and countries across the Pacific. But geopolitical arguments for deals are failing to carry the day. Last November, deep congressional skepticism and electoral concerns spurred the administration to indefinitely postpone the IPEF trade pillar, and it is unclear whether it will complete the work even after the 2024 election. So, with this being the case, and also considering that previous President Donald Trump wanted Europe to pay its fair share, if we were to restructure U.S. trade agreements, what does this mean? Starting with non-smoker.
Yeah, I mean, I think the article does a really good job, and this wasn't their intention, by the way, for the author of the Carnegie Endowment as a whole in publishing this, but it does a really good job of outlining the problems with free trade as a system and the kind of like negative impact that free trade agreements have had on working people in America and continue to have, honestly, on working people in America and working people all over the world. I think that the thinking of the neoliberal consensus of the 80s and the 90s into the early 2000s was that through free trade agreements and things like the World Trade Organization, you could basically neutralize all the threats of the world and have everybody come into some sort of harmonious economic collaboration with one another. And look, the thinking made sense at the time for a variety of reasons, right? End of the Cold War, end of this seemingly adversarial economic relationship with the developing or the second world powers, right? China and Russia. The hope that you could integrate them into like this world system, but also the reality that, because of like the differences in labor practices and the cost of labor, and just the way that economics work at this scale in like a very developed technological world, the economy was going to be globalized no matter what. So why not try to figure out a way to make that as cohesive as possible? And that was the whole spirit of free trade agreements. I think in time, a lot of the opposition to that you saw with like the battle in Seattle in 99 for the WTO conference in the US, and honestly, a lot of the hand-wringing that people did in the US and the West about allowing China and later Russia into the WTO, it all kind of was like a harbinger of the problems to come, which were namely that free trade agreements led to a greater amount of outsourcing of jobs, which of course, decimated the US working class, has forced them to turn to, the hope was that they could go into healthcare and all these other fields. And I think many Americans sort of feel alienated in the job market. They end up in the gig economy or the service sector doing like mindless work. And, the whole promise of like cheaper consumer goods. I mean, they did deliver on that free trade agreements, but they've ultimately failed in, alleviating the economic burden on working people because working people make less money now and they have less security. So free trade agreements, I think, as a whole have failed. This article kind of articulates that and explains that basically they're mad that China is winning in the free trade world. And so we should try to devise ways to cut China out of the world economic system. And it's so stupid to, try to conceive of a world like that when China makes fucking everything, right? They make the precursors to things that are made in other countries that we want to do business with. The article talks about that with Vietnam. So I'm not sure, look, this is more China baiting, attempting to, stoke the flames there. I think it's dumb. And yeah, they're ignoring the elephant in the room. Free trade hurts working people.
Thank you, non-smokers. Go with Tiberius.
Well, it's been a weird day, but I actually, if I don't at least agree with non-smoker, he has good points today. So, interesting that we're having this particular exchange. I'm going to subdivide the prompt into two categories. First, I'm going to do security, then I'll do trade. When it comes to security, the armed Europe is scary. Conversation is real. Even in the depths of the Cold War, we told Germany, West Germany, that we didn't want them to have a big, huge military. They had the ability to put 2 million men in the field in the 1980s. They had the economy, they had the robust manpower. They could have done all of that. They had 500,000, and they were going to be the front line of the Cold War if it actually got hot. There was a reason for that. We told them we didn't want it because we don't want to see Britain and France and Germany all, basically toting out guns, because what happens if they turn on each other or they become a problem for us? That was literally the State Department's policy for the longest time. And we've only gotten into now where we're regretting that, not because we aren't maintaining a reasonable defense spending. It's because Europe stopped spending money almost entirely on defense. Germany, at the start of this war in 2022, openly told the world they had less than a division that they could actually deploy anywhere, even in Europe, to actually go fight anyone who was a threat to, our Western order. The Brits are down to about a division. The French have the French Foreign Legion and about 3 divisions, while the United States has over 20. Now, granted, I have no problem with the United States being able to pull its weight, but there's a level where it's like, hey, the world's still a scary place. Maybe you guys want to pull your damn weight a little bit. So one of the things that I actually applauded Trump for was kind of getting Germany and all these other folks to say, hey, look, we have no problem being on the same team, but the world's not as nice as you guys keep thinking it is. And then he was vindicated in February 2022 when the Russians showed up in Ukraine. So there's a lot of degrees where I know this is one of those things me and Lactoid have gone around and around with, but I think we actually agree on this, is that Europe needs to pull its damn weight. And the reality is that a lot of Europe isn't. So I'm cool with putting the sticks to them and saying, hey, look, you got to try harder, especially when this is your backyard. When it comes to the trade part, Smoker laid it out pretty well for me, but I'll just re-hit the highlights. Number one, most people don't play by the same rules. Most of the Europeans actually are over-regulated compared to us, so anytime we have a trade deal with them, it's good for us. So, I don't have a problem with that because we're more competitive. But when it comes to dealing with China, you're talking about a state that's openly over-subsidized on almost every major industry. You're talking about people who don't give a flying shit for EPA regulations or climate regulations or any of that. God forbid, labor regulations. They still have labor fatalities out the ass in China. You also have just general trade imbalance. Think about China, or more particularly India. India still has less than $4,000 a year per citizen, and it's 1.3 billion people, almost now 1.4. And you're now telling us that we want to trade with them or trade with China was in a similar boat. Well, what does that mean? Every job that you can do there versus here, you're gonna do there because it's cheaper. And we can get into the whole conversation about the quality control and the productivity and all that shit. But the reality is that this steals your job. They're going to make stuff over there. They're going to do telecommunications over there. Thanks to the internet, now your computer is going to get fixed virtually over there. It literally is one of those deals where if you're trading with certain people, it is going to cost you your job. And I think the reality is that the neoliberal world order is bullshit. Is that we say that free trade is great for anyone and everybody. On a global level, yes. For us as developed nations, fuck no. We have been economically bleeding out of our eyeballs since 1973, when we really started buying into free trade writ large. Finally, the last point I want to make here on trade is that we need to be more conscious about who we trade with, because we can empower people we don't like. We literally watched China develop from a country that was in a very similar spot to India today to now our rival superpower, or at least a rival regional power that has an economy that's stretching up to, 2/3 of the American economy. We enabled that. Was that smart? I don't think so. Now, granted, maybe I would have made the same decision because of certain arguments we can get into in the open, but at least we need to acknowledge at this point that it was a mistake and we need to cut China out of the family because China is a threat to global security and the way that we see our national values. I'm going to end with that. Thank you very much, and we'll see you on the open.
Thank you, Ty. Haas.
Okay, so I'm mostly going to do similar to what Ty did there, security than trade. Security-wise, I will disagree with Ty on something. NATO spending has gone up. There's a requirement for each country to spend 2% of their GDP. If you go look at current year, every country except for, I believe, Belgium is spending 2% of their GDP. So that's starting to happen, and that's thanks to Trump. Like, I'll give him credit in the world. That was the idea. Before that, it was abysmal. America was carrying their water. That should continue. We should actually be forcing our countries that are in NATO to support their own military. Like, that's a good thing going forward. As far as trade goes, I think you're already starting to see a shift towards Latin America, South America. You're already seeing companies, especially automakers, even ones that are from Japan and from Asia, making cars in Mexico and then shipping them up. There's a reason for that. You're seeing that because it's cheaper. They can still get the cheap labor that they would get in China or in any other country on the east, but now they don't have to put it on a ship and get it here and take 2 weeks. That's the reality. You're going to start seeing more trade shift towards Latin America and South America for that reason.
All right. Thank you. Let's go with Lactoid.
Yeah, I mean, I wish it was just Belgium, but it unfortunately is more than just Belgium. As of 2024, the countries that have not met their obligations, their 2% obligations that they agreed to as part of NATO, is Croatia, Portugal, Italy, Canada, Belgium, Luxembourg, Slovenia, and Spain. Now, I don't give a fuck about Luxembourg. I'm going to be frank with you. They could spend 1%. They could spend 0.5%. I don't care. They're Luxembourg. I'm surprised we even let them in. I don't know what they do for us. It's whatever. But Spain,
They got the banks.
yeah, maybe, yeah. But Spain and Italy, right? These are two of the major countries of Europe, and Spain's the lowest at 1.28% in 2024, and Italy is not that much higher at 1.49. Right? Canada, our northern member. Really the country that's between us and Russia, they can't hit 2% either. They're at 1.37, right? They keep bragging about the free healthcare that they provide their citizens, but they can't even pay their obligations that they agreed to. And let's not beat around the bush. All these countries get far more from NATO, from America and NATO than we get from them, right? America is the preeminent force of NATO. And these are, for lack of a better word, our satellites. They should pay more. I think that Trump was right to call them out on it. I understand that even before Trump, there was pressure for them to pay more. Then Trump put additional pressure, and then we saw some good numbers. Then the war in Ukraine happened, and then, yes, we saw improvement. A lot of countries that were not. In fact, if I'm looking here correctly, the only countries... So in 2014, for example, the only countries that were hitting the requirement was it's going to be Estonia and the United States, and Greece, and the UK, and that's it. And that's it. All the other NATO countries were not hitting their 2%. So it's better. It's better than it was, thankfully. But that pressure should continue. Europe should be paying a lot more because the United States doesn't just have European security to be concerned about. We also have Pacific security. And so this goes beyond NATO. I also think that our Asian allies should be paying more as well. I'm fully in favor of the rearming of Japan. I think it's about time that they're doing this. I fully support that. And I think they should be changing their constitution to allow their full remilitarization. Same thing, obviously, in South Korea. And Taiwan. Taiwan doesn't even, if you look at Taiwan's military spending, it's pathetic. This is the country that's most threatened right now in Asia, I think, with complete annihilation. And they can't even be bothered to spend anywhere close to what we spend on their military. It's bizarre, right? What happens when countries get under the U.S. military umbrella? They think they can just coast because for a long time we just let them coast. They should be made to pay their fair share for security. Full stop. In terms of trade, I'm going to disagree. I think free trade is actually pretty good. Generally speaking, I think that trade with countries that we're not particularly concerned about empowering.
Goddamn libertarian.
I know. Concerns that we don't concerned with empowering, right? I think it's a great thing that we trade with Taiwan. I think it's a great thing that we trade with Japan. I think it's actually a pretty good thing that when we trade with India, right? I think India serves as an important counterweight to Pakistan and China in that region. But I do agree with one thing that was said about trade, which is that it has the consequence of potentially empowering our enemies. And I think that the country that we see this more so than anybody else is going to be China. I've said before that a common communist proverb, non-smoker might know this and enjoy it. I don't know. But like, what was it? Like, we're going to hang the capitalists with the rope they sell us.
Yeah.
I think that this is the Chinese strategy. They're going to shoot us with the bullets that they make using our money. And I don't know. There needs to when we're talking about values, I think China serves a much bigger threat than Russia in the long run, in terms of geopolitical world order. And I would like to see trade relations with China limited. And I would like to see tariffs on China. And I would like to see restrictions on China and expanding trade and removing tariffs and removing obstacles to countries that we want to see empowered, right? Like, again, South Korea, Japan, perhaps even India. I think that's just smart from a geopolitical point of view. And when it comes to dealing with communists, generally tariffs are bad, but, tariffs on the table.
All right, Gibbs.
Yeah, so I genuinely like free trade as well. However, I also admit there's adversarial powers, unlike some people, that don't live in the real world. China, Russia, they're adversarial powers. So, yeah, I think that we should use our trade tools against them that we have, tariffs, other things, lots of stuff. I also, when we come to look at like things like NATO, I'm going to echo a lot of what's been said here. With I think they should pay their own way. I am going to maybe differentiate slightly. He brought up Luxembourg. I think that's kind of interesting. Some of these companies that benefit from war here in the United States, their total, net worth and some of their net exports is actually more than the entire net exports of Luxembourg, right? This is a NATO member, so some of these companies like L3 Communications and I don't know, I'm just going to pick one off a list here, and let me see if I got the list still up or if I closed it right when I need it. Boeing, yeah, is a good example. I had a list of 20 countries that were here benefiting from the war, war spending, and some of them have outrageous. Lockheed Martin is number one. They're like outrageous incomes. These are American-based companies. Raytheon's another one. These are war. We export war, right? That's what we do. Honestly, I'm not a neoliberal. I'm a neocon. I believe in American excellence, American exceptionalism. I believe in using our military power for the benefit of America. Free trade's great, but not with our enemies. So if they have something we like, maybe we should go in there and take it. In fact, maybe we should change our imperialism. I regret us not taking over Iraq and turning it into a special economic zone and just keeping their oil for ourselves. Fuck them. I'm sorry, you went to war with us, you lost. That's our shit now. I think that we need to bring that back. Russia clearly doesn't have a problem doing it. China didn't have a problem doing it. Tibet. So, if these other countries are going to do that, I don't know why we're not Manifest Destiny 2.0 in them. And, our satellite countries, you know what? They need to get in line. They're supposed to be our boys, but instead they're being baby back bitches. Thank God they've started spending some. I'm sick of all us spending all the money and playing world police for no benefits. I think now it's time for America to start getting the benefits. I think Trump was right about at least making them pay their own share. I don't know if he was right about the isolationism, because, if you just let people fester, they get worse, right? It happens every time. So we let Saddam sit there and get powerful. And what did he do? He invaded Kuwait. Same thing here. We let Russia do what they want. And they're all over the region. Iran. We made a nuclear deal with them, and now they're fucking bombing Israel every other week. They got proxy people everywhere. We act like we don't have consequences from trying to play peacemaker all the time. It's time to go back to carrying the big stick and smacking people upside the head with it. That's what we need to do. That's what we should do. It's good for our economy. America first. And anybody that's really against this is actually really just against America. Why do you hate your fellow Americans? Y'all want to talk about jobs? Let's talk about the military-industrial complex. That creates a lot of jobs. Here's a company that's on the list that makes a military-industrial industrial stuff. Honeywell, you know what else they make? They make air conditioners. And then you got to think about all these things that are not military industrial complex based when you go over there. They build weapons. They got guess what? Now there's bases need air conditioners. Boom! Now you got a twofer. It's great. We could be sitting here employing all these people. Y'all like immigration? These people need jobs. Guess what? Military. Send them over there. Get service guaranteed citizenship. Bam. We're getting on. Now you can all these immigrants can come. I'm just solving all the left's problems today, and they're all solved by going and taking out these other countries and taking their shit. But no, I'm gonna hear a lot of whining and bitching about this. I'm sure.
All right, non-smoker has a dip, so I'm going to let him speak to what just happened a moment ago.
All right.
Based air conditioners. Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna leave, guys. Sorry, we got a school day in the house here tomorrow, so it was fun. I always enjoy talking to you guys. If you ever want a 1v1, just to chat, doesn't even have to be a debate. Hit me up. Anyone in your audiences, you like the cut of my jib, twitch.tv/non_smoker. Trying to stream more regularly. Yeah, just to summarize my points, I mean, I think free trade has proven to be a failure. Thank you for the shout out, Gibbs. I think it's hurt working people in America and all over the world. I do think NATO is bad. I think it's promotes war, promotes conflict. I think that its utility is past with the fall of the Soviet Union, and yet we've used it as a weapon kind of to weaken Russia. I think that's led to disastrous consequences, namely in Ukraine. So I'm anti-NATO in general, but, to the extent that we're a member, objectively, I think cutting back our funding of NATO is good, right? It's better than nothing. So, yeah, I think I'm with some of these guys on that. And then, yeah, I just want to say one last thing. China's historical claim to Tibet is much, much, much greater than America's claim to anything west of the proclamation of 1763. So with that being said, praise be to Mao Zedong, praise be to Allah, and I'll see you later.
Peace out.
Okay. Wasn't ready for that part.
All right, do your thing, gents.
Crap baskets. So I know me and Lactoid have gone around the free trade conversation about 15 fucking times. So, I don't know where we even start to rehash that shit out. Haas, I didn't hear hardly anything from you last round, so if you want to pick it up, go for it, man.
I mean, generally, I agree with Lactoid on free trade being pretty based. I do think we have to be careful with who we do free trade with. On free trade being pretty based. I do think we have to be careful with who we do free trade.
He didn't talk a lot last one, so now he gets to talk twice.
Exactly. Yeah, we got to double it up. But yeah, no, I think generally free trade in general is based. Like I said, I do because I work in international shipping. I work with ships. This is kind of my forte. I do see a lot of stuff shifting towards Mexico and Latin America, and I think that's overall a good thing. You have an on-continent production supplier, and I do think that's where we should be looking, honestly.
I agree with you, but not for economic reasons, but for security reasons. I want to see
it's both. It's security and economic, because Mexico is pretty much untapped. You can turn Mexico, because I mean the big thing is we get a lot of stuff from cartels. And the reason why I'm saying to push towards Mexico is if you enrich the civilians in Mexico with good jobs that aren't the cartel, they'll take those jobs over being in the cartel. That's currently doesn't exist. So you kind of do two things. You bring Mexico in line with U.S. Policy stuff, and then you also have a southern border that's now a lot more productive.
That's actually 100% true. Especially with the cartel comment, because not only that we don't know, the cartels are really interesting because they're kind of like terrorist organizations, and they're like quasi governments. Right. In some ways, they're even more successful than the government. They're like a shadow government. They'll have their own setup in some of these cities, and what it's basically they are the government. They even produce stuff they have their own tanks. They have their own homemade tanks. They build the narco subs. They have river boats that are river battle boats, basically. We have to fight them on the Rio Grande and shit. And so and they have this kind of infrastructure, and they set this up. And they need these jobs. So it's like he said, they do need these jobs. They need that creates manufacturing jobs. They have shipping jobs. They have logistics jobs. And these are all regular jobs that the cartel needs. This isn't even their, backhand, behind the line, kind of like drug cartel shit that, what they're known for. And like, then now, since they have these quasi-government states, they're making fucking deals with goddamn China. And that's right on our border. But hey, we don't need to worry about the southern border, guys. No big deal.
Okay, so like I'll put it this way. I believe that if you're dealing with somebody who has like significantly lower like regulations on than you do, significantly lower taxes, but also a significantly lower standard of living, you're going to see an economic bleed out towards those folks. And so, like as a developed nation, if we are going to do that, we want to trade with either fellow developed nations, or we want to empower the people who are going to develop at least into the community, because we want to. So I have no problem with trading with Mexico, even though it will cost some people their jobs. Automakers are a great example of this. We do build a lot here, but there's also levels where some of those jobs that absolutely went to Mexico. I'm okay with that because having a Mexico that is economically prosperous and vibrant means that people aren't turning the cartels as their only form of income. And let's be real, drugs make a shitload of money. So I'm cool with that. I'm not okay with empowering Cuba. Fuck Cuba. Their government is barbaric, and until they decide that they're actually going to start having free and open elections, we can embargo the piss out of them until the livelong day. But if they do change their ways, we will be able to sell them anything and everything because they can't make any of it. The only thing that we lose out on is sugarcane. We can't make sugar the way that they can.
And Cuban women.
I could end the cartels tomorrow.
And cigars.
I could end the cartels tomorrow. There's one action you can do. All
Legalize
the cartels
cocaine.
go away. Legalize drugs.
Cocaine.
The cartels will disappear.
No, that's not true. They won't disappear because of human trafficking.
Well, hold on. With no drugs, like that is like the bread and butter for the cartels.
There's always something illegal. They'll just go into industrial pharmaceuticals or something. They'll convert it. That's like exactly what they'll do.
Well, if they go into industrial pharmaceuticals, they're just going to be like a regular business, like Pfizer.
Which they are. That's kind of what's so nefarious about the cartels is they invest in both, right? So they're like these hybrid, companies. Like they're like a hybrid.
Yes, and if we remove the illegal aspect, now we've removed like the violent aspect.
The gangs just don't go away. They just don't. They like now some of them might go away.
They will.
We
saw this. Hold on, real quick. We saw this with the end of Prohibition, right? Like we had Prohibition. We legalized alcohol again, and yes, the mafia was involved in a couple other things.
And what did Capone do? Wasn't Capone
dead
by
the time?
No, you know what he did after when Prohibition came out, right? What did they do? You see, it ended. He fucking turned his shit into milk production facilities and invented fucking expiration dates.
I got no idea.
Hold on. Isn't that a good thing? I mean, if the gangs go legit, if the gangs go legit, then the problem's over, right? They're just another business.
No, he was still shooting people. He just translated that part of his business to something that was legitimate, and then fucking started taking it. And even expiration dates. Google it. Look it up.
Gibbs, like here's the real part. Even if we don't see that the gangs completely go away, I'm not going to make that claim. We can theoretically believe that they're going to lose a significant part of their power and their coercion. They're not going to be able to make money in the same way. They're not going to be enticing for people to be pushing drugs because they can get it literally at a legalized vendor that isn't laced.
Wait, this also this is just wholly untrue. What you
that's Walter White's argument.
So the thing you said about Capone hold on real quick. You said Al Capone, like they brought back alcohol and then he went into like a milk racket. This is not what happened.
And the milk.
No. So he went to prison the year before alcohol was legalized again. So he was in prison when alcohol was legalized. And then he developed neurosyphilis. And when he was released, he was mentally incompetent and couldn't do shit. He was released because he was like mentally diseased from neurosyphilis.
He also made the milk dates.
I have no idea if like while he was profiting off of like the bootleg liquor, he also did some kind of milk racket.
He used both. They used both.
But what was his bread and butter? What was his bread and butter? What kept him in business?
Criminal behavior, I guess, and milk.
I mean, did the mafia take over the sanitation industry too?
I mean,
like in New
and
York?
pizza. You go to New York. Have you ever had a pizza? Gone to a pizza place in New York? All mafia run.
Oh
Let's
my
be
fucking
real.
god! Listen. You're gonna have. I'm not denying. Okay, when I say the cartels are
Stop
gonna
feeding
disappear,
the memes like.
no, I have to. I have to. I know. I gotta be clear on this. I'm not.
God damn.
When I
This
said the
is why
cartels,
politics
I wasn't
sucks now.
kidding. That's true.
yeah, when I said the cartels are gonna like
I
disappear,
know it's true.
here's what I mean. I'm not denying that you're gonna have some level of criminal activity and you're gonna have some level of rackets. Legalizing drugs isn't gonna remove all crime tomorrow, but what it's gonna do is it's gonna completely. It's going to in a large effect remove the power of these cartels that are a pseudo, like you said, almost pseudo these pseudo government organizations that buy their guns, that buy their rocket launchers and their armored vehicles using the money sold, using the money gained by selling drugs. And if we remove that aspect of their income, they're not going to be able to afford any of that shit. Yeah, they might have to go back to like ripping people off with milk cartons. I don't fucking know. But they're not going to be blowing up Mexican planes anymore. They're not going to be controlling entire areas. Like, that is where they make their money. That is like the bread and butter for their operation. And we can end it tomorrow by stopping the unconstitutional, well, I could argue it's unconstitutional, the war on drugs. Actually, it is unconstitutional, actually. The unconstitutional war on drugs, we can end it tomorrow. And then we don't have to worry about Mexican cartels anymore. And then when the Mexican cartels go away, you know what else goes away? Gibbs, you're going to love this. When Mexico gets better because the cartels are not running everything, immigration's going to go down because the people of Mexico are going to want to stay there because they don't have to worry about being killed by sicarios because they accidentally looked at a gang member wrong.
I'm with you on legalizing all the drug use. Like, hey, I'm a big fan of that idea.
But I'll get there.
I'm like, listen, if you want to, I don't see any reason why the government can tell me that I can't go rail a line off a hooker and then fucking go do a business deal in the other room. I don't understand why they should have any say over that. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, give me a break. Or if Tommy Lee down the road wants to go smoke some meth in his trailer, hey, let him. I mean, who am I to judge? I don't think the government should say that. But if you think the cartels are going to go away, no. Here's how we get rid of the cartels. We have drones. We have missiles. We have fucking missiles that shoot knives that kill these people now. Well, we just go in there, we take them out, and then we say, hey, Mexico, remember the war of when we fought you? Well, we're using our claims to ethnic Americans being trapped here from descendants of the U.S. soldiers that had sex with the women of Mexico. Yeah, well, they don't know that. There's no such thing as ethnic Russians either. So you can't convince me there's ethnic anything. Really,
they're all Ukrainians.
It's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. So that's what my point is. We'll just come with some bullshit reason and conquer Mexico, and we'll be like, hey, guess what? No more cartels. You're now the 51st state. We can break up a few more. I don't give a shit. And it'll be perfect. And then we'll have our nice economic zone to produce. They got a lot of natural resources too. And no cartels.
I think they would enjoy it if they get to be states.
If we legalize drugs, we have more goods to engage in free trade with, right? We can sell opium to China.
We could do like Capone did to the milk industry and the unions and undercut the opium industry of the Taliban.
Okay, look,
I'm just saying.
I want to get in here for a minute because I'm going to be the social conservative that says I don't want to legalize drugs. I do think
Rude.
Let me get out of here real quick. All right, so number one, I do think that we need a significant reevaluation on our drug policy, top to bottom. I don't think the way we've been handling this is working at all, or at least to a large degree. I don't want to go the Portland route of just fucking like legalizing everything. I think that's a disaster of its own proportion. Some of these substances are incredibly dangerous. Rescheduling helps to some degree.
Biden delayed that. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, look, just let me finish, guys. Look, when it comes down to it, some of the shit I'm totally on board with, like changing up the way we treat weed, as an example, is fucking ridiculous. I would say that weed needs to be the most encouraged drug before fucking alcohol. Like, it makes you a better person. Being drunk usually doesn't, okay? I fucking said it. On the other side of this, though, like, a lot of this shit is incredibly dangerous. We can talk about fentanyl. We can talk about heroin. We can talk about fucking methamphetamines, all this shit. Like, there's a lot of these drugs that have incredibly harmful, not only social, but physical effects to human people. They're incredibly either addictive or, like, literally can destroy your body. I just don't want a free open range to where people can do this shit. If you like, the best I could do is being like, hey, look, we're not going to do like hardcore drugs. We're not going to legalize that. But what we will do, and this is the best, and I would still want to puke after doing it, is having shit that's like low dosage, kind of like shit you can pick up with a prescription. I'm thinking kind of like Adderall. Remind you, Adderall is so dangerous. The Europeans have banned it. But it's also
Europeans are pussies.
But okay, I'm gonna be real. They're usually a little bit better with health than we are. They've banned high fructose corn syrup because it's fucking terrible.
They also allow Kinder eggs. Just to be clear, we don't. So
what the hell is that?
The U.S. banned the U.S. has banned Kinder eggs. We also banned lawn darts.
You can also eat horse meat.
I could have sworn I've seen Kinder eggs.
You can buy horse meat.
I know what you've seen. What you've seen is not a Kinder egg. It is like a Kinder surprise egg or something. It's a slightly rebranded thing, and it's distinctly different. The toy is not in the chocolate egg. The toy is in a small package next to the chocolate egg, which defeats the entire part. I want to put the toys in the chocolate eggs, but the U.S. government doesn't allow me to do that. But the Europeans, they allow it for some reason. Fucking with all the regulations, they're more free on this topic than we are. We need free trade for Kinder eggs and heroin.
And the U.S. won't let you eat horse meat. You know, it's crazy.
Look,
and horse meat. Thank you, Gibbs. Exactly.
All I'm saying is, I don't think anyone does it perfectly, but I do think we have significant problems with drugs. I think that we do need to reschedule. I do think we need to like reevaluate a number of these, and like, there's a lot of arguments that are pro legalization, particularly the economic ones, that actually make a lot of sense. I'm not going to act like it's just a one-stop shop. You know, everyone's got the silver bullet. But I do think that we're going to see significant problems with addiction if people are labeled to get the smorgasbord. I know the leftists love to talk about fucking Portugal a couple of years ago, but you notice they've gotten a lot more quiet about this shit lately. Yeah, they've got an addiction epidemic now. It's not like absolutely astronomical because Portugal's full of old people. But when it comes down to it, is that if people want drugs, and they're going to get them. And let's be real, we have a mental health crisis, and we have a crisis where people are just kind of unhappy with their lives.
Do addicted people vote? Do addicted people vote?
Yes.
No, they don't, because they're looking for their next addiction. In fact, I think that actually, like,
you're full of shit, dude.
I'm just saying, like, bro.
They vote when there's a drug referendum.
Hold on. How many hobos do you know? How many hobos that are heroin addicts go into the voting booth?
Most heroin addicts I know are not hobos. They're people.
Most addicts are not hobos.
How many heroin addicts do you know?
More than I'd like to say.
Yeah, most addicts are functional.
Like, this is the part that actually...
All heroin addicts I know are not functional.
Okay, well, hold on. Just to be clear, Portugal's doing fine. They toned it down on drugs. The death rates have decreased. The HIV transmission rates have decreased. They have a lower proportion of their population in prison, which, again, like, is a benefit. Keeping people locked in a cage is like a bad thing. Portugal's doing great, okay? There's also, again, like a moral aspect here. Part of being an autonomous human being, an autonomous adult, is being able to put what you want inside your own body. And there's major economic benefits. We will be able to sell this shit. We can end all the government money that goes into enforcing these policies, not only on the prison area, but also hiring all the DEA agents and other, three-letter government agencies.
We can add that money to the pay.
We can add that money to other shit, and we send these people in, and it causes the immigration issue, and it causes the cartel issue. There's so many, like, unironically, like, legalizing drugs would be like the best policy. And Trump is the most 420 president we've ever had. I'm going to defend this for a second, please. 2018, Trump signed the Farm Bill. Okay, that gave us Delta 8. Sweet. Well, no, I'm going to get to that. I'm going to get to him being more pro 420 than any other president, right? Because the Farm Bill was just the beginning, right? Where he's bringing in Delta 8, he's bringing in THCA, he's bringing in all the other, like, THC alternatives, right? And of course, he's running opposed to Kamala, who's a cop who put people in prison for weed, right? So
while smoking weed.
Juxtapose the two. We have a cop who wants to put people, or did put people in prison for smoking weed, who haven't said anything about weed legalization. Oh, we're going to deschedule it, and then Biden delayed the descheduling, or the DEA did. Biden's DA delayed the descheduling until December after the election. And then we got Trump coming out on the podcast, right? Lex's podcast, talking about how he's going to vote in favor of Amendment 3 in Florida, which legalizes recreational marijuana possession up to 3 ounces, which
That's a lot.
is a lot of marijuana.
That's a lot.
And Trump's going to vote in favor of that. Why? Because Trump said that he's talked a lot about this and he's heard a lot about it. And for adults, it's got to be a certain age range, he said. But for adults, like weed's got to be legalized. Now, I support that too. The most 420 friendly president is Donald Trump, and we got to legalize weed. And I think Trump might be the one to do it. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, 3 ounces is a lot of weed.
I think it's unstoppable. I think it's going to happen regardless who's president.
I'm getting pissed off because
So I want to respond to something real quick, just like 2 seconds, because I actually am from Portland, lived here for the last like 20 years, and I voted for that law. Originally, the way that it was proposed to us was that it was supposed to put money towards addiction treatment. So we were going to be, but that never happened. Is the issue. And so then
surprise,
it got repealed. So as of right now, it's been repealed. They've recriminalized all of the drugs. You're starting to see a lot of the downtown area, which everybody talks about a bunch of zombies. Yes, it was that way. I work down there 4 days out of the week. It's getting better. And so you're starting to see that change.
Fucking best.
I'm not for like legalizing everything. I think people at their worst will do their worst.
And to a degree, these things are experiments, right? So sometimes
that's exactly what
there is a silver lining here. We got to find out how far is too far.
We found out it didn't work because there wasn't the support. Like that was the thing. Like if there was the support, I could see there being a better argument for it, but there wasn't. Just didn't happen.
Shocking. Yeah. So like, all right, Lactoid, I'm gonna tag on you for a minute here, and then we can go out of here, or we can go into the greater conversation. Are you libertarian to the point where you're like, I don't care, like you don't want seatbelt laws, you don't give a shit if there's laws against red paint, that kind of stuff?
Lead paint potentially, because there's a risk to other people over time, especially if it gets into the water supply. Seatbelts, absolutely not. In fact, I'm currently talking to you injured from a motorcycle accident where I crashed my motorcycle, and I'm not required by law to wear a seatbelt. Yeah, I'm already like it hurts real bad. But I'm obviously not wearing a seatbelt on that. Why the fuck does somebody driving a car have to wear a seatbelt when even without a seatbelt, the car is much safer than my motorcycle, which I'm definitely against banning because it's so much fun, even though I hurt myself on it.
Right. So like obviously the extension conversation there is like, you're probably against like helmets for motorcyclists and whatnot.
Yes,
it's their right to kill themselves.
I wear one, but it should be an individual choice. And I want to point out that with Oregon specifically, Oregon's rate of opioid overdose death rates is lower than the United States average. You did see an increase in 2020, but you see an increase in the entire United States as well.
Okay.
And Oregon's below that.
I'm just trying to stay on like one level of this conversation.
Sorry.
Yeah, mostly what I'm getting at is I saw it live in person.
Right.
Literally people on the corner selling fentanyl, and the cops not doing shit about it because they.
They should.
The important part is that my condemnation's been rectified. It's like literally they smartened up and they fucking reversed their decision because it was a terrible ass decision, as it should be. Like I'm sorry, Lactoid. Like there's a level here where it's just like I understand like your general moral perspective, and there's levels where I want to believe in it and agree with it, but I just can't. Like I can't agree with it when I literally watch people say that they're okay with putting horse dewormer in them to fight COVID. Like I'm sorry, the average American is not equipped to make medical decisions on this grade. And yeah, we need to be telling people, at least on some levels, you can do this and you can't do this shit. Like I know that pisses off folks,
hold on. Let's just take that bait for a moment.
All right.
Didn't AstraZeneca just announce that there was a percentage of people that got rare blood clots and strokes and heart attacks due to their vaccine? I feel like if you are going to take something that is stopping the potential of one thing killing you in order to stop the potential that has the potential of killing you a different way, you definitely should have the right to say, I don't want that fucking in my body. Now I'm not saying one way or the other whether right or not to do it, but I am saying that if one thing could kill you and you're supposed to take something to stop that from killing you, but it could kill you a different way.
This is kind of the argument between like taking your car to work versus walking. Walking is significantly fucking safer.
Absolutely not. Except because no one's holding a gun to my head saying, "Hey, if you don't have your vaccine passport, then you can't buy groceries at Walmart today."
And unfortunately, the Democrats didn't have enough balls to actually fucking carry it out. So what are you complaining about?
On that note, before we go too far into this, I know what this is going to be. Before we get too far on this, we've run over. So if anybody needs a dip, I will let you have it. Like, get your outro, and I'm going to start the open. Otherwise, continue fighting. So anybody need to dip right quick?
I will just formally apologize that we really didn't stay on the original topics, but I do think like the Ukraine conversation was great.
It ran long, so we stayed on the topic, but we ran long.
Yeah, when it comes to the trade conversation, we're well off the rails. We're into drugs.
But we'll bring it back because legalization, like ultimately, I think autonomy is the basis of freedom of trade. And I guess to ask it nice, like as nice as I can, where do you guys? Because there's multiple people here who proposed it now. Where do you guys get off telling me what I can or can't do with my own body, right?
That's right.
It's incredible how
I don't trust you.
Well, hold on. It's incredible how
you don't trust them
in this country. You know, we have.
I don't trust these other governments.
Hold on 1 second.
That's fine.
It's incredible how we in this country, you know, abortion, which is actually something of like an ethical quagmire, right? Because you know, my body, my choice. Well, arguably, there's another body involved. But when it comes to drugs, there is no argument. There's no other body involved. It's just me. But for some reason, like. Americans are like think that abortion is more of a bodily autonomy argument, but that drugs isn't. That make sense. Why is it not my freedom to put a needle into my own body? Who are you guys to tell me I can't do that if I'm an adult, a free citizen of the planet, of Mother Gaia? I am a son of Mother Gaia, and you fascists are telling me what I can or can't do. It's ridiculous. Why? Where do you get off?
Have you been talking to Fairy Queen lately? This sounds like something that she would say herself.
Well, if she would say it, she'd be right. Okay, she'd be right on this topic.
I
Portland is fine. The only problem with Portland is that it's liberal. That's the only problem.
Oh my God! Look, let
me throw an answer to that.
You had to let people in. All right.
I'm gonna throw the answer to that just because up until that, I've agreed with most of what you said. Like I agree with the taxation legalization of drugs. That I agree with half that. Well,
he doesn't like taxes.
Hold on, but don't tax it.
No, hold on. This is why I'm not saying vice taxes on the drugs are good. Like it funds all sorts of shit, and it's like, hey, you want to have the luxury?
Taxes are good. Gibbs, did you just say that?
Yes, I'm not a libertarian. Taxes on vice taxes. I don't have a problem with vice taxes if it's reasonable. Like what? Like listen, I want to go buy my pack of Marlboro Red 100s. And it's gonna go to some other shit.
Marlboro Reds, Gibbs. What the fuck?
I don't smoke. Or like if I'm like I smoke cigars, I don't smoke. Yeah, but like if I was gonna go buy, get a pack of chew, or if I'm gonna go get some alcohol, you spend a little bit on your vice. Like at least it's an optional luxury item getting taxed, right? That's going towards stuff. That's much better than the government taking my hard-earned money like directly from me in my income tax. I'm not like you. I believe there are uses for the government, like undercutting the Taliban with our free drug policy and selling our drugs over there.
Like getting guns to Ukraine. I get it. Yeah.
And giving guns and taking over these other countries. Like, bro, could you imagine if we still had Iraq oil fields and we were just like, fuck you, bitch?
There's an opportunity for a bridge. Think how many guns we can give Ukraine if we legalize drugs. Okay? We could give them so many guns.
I'm already on board with legalizing drugs.
I'd take that trade.
All right. And taxing it. No. Let me finish this conversation with Lactoid, and then the new guys can get in, because otherwise I'm going to lose my thought, and I'm going to get pissed. All right, look, Lactoid, there is levels to where, I want to respect people's individual rights and freedoms, but, you brought up the one that I've really have been going harder and harder on lately, and that's abortion. For a long time, I've struggled with this one, because on certain levels, it's a mess. Right? It absolutely is just a complete mess. But I've gotten to the point now where I'm just definitively on the side of this shit is blatantly fucking immoral, and what a great sign that our country has lost its way when people say that it's a right to have an abortion. We are literally, if you made an abortion a death statistic and you said these are citizens and they died this year, it would tie with cancer.
No, it'd be
more than that. It's about the same level. It's 600,000 people die of cancer. It's 610 abortions in 2022, the last I checked the numbers. This is fucking unacceptable. Like, if you have a right, you should have the responsibility to use that right with like some level of like dignity and decency. It's why I'm so hard on fucking 2A advocates. I'm fine with having a gun. I'm not fine with fucking seeing school shootings every fucking weekend, or at least once a month. And we just had another one today. So, like, the reality
Big
here
one.
for me was a long conversation. We'll get there later. I don't see this right being used to the degree where it should be. Like, if it had been 40,000 people, it tied for car statistics. Like, I might understand that. But it's literally would be the number 2 killer in the country. Fuck that shit. That shit's openly immoral, and I'm against it. And on the same basis, I think there's levels where we need to come together as a community and say, hey, look, certain substances you should not be able to take, or at least we need to regulate the level of what you can. Like, if you want to have Adderall, fine, but you're going to have that shit prescribed. I'm not going to give you straight methamphetamine. I don't give a flying fuck what freedoms you think you have. You don't deserve that freedom. You're openly destroying yourselves, and you're making your life worse for other people around you. Like, how many social elements can we go down that are a result of drug statistics? Like, people stealing from
nearly as much as with alcohol.
For real, I would have been very much one of the people that was in favor of prohibition back in the day, 100%.
Goddamn woman.
I appreciate the consistency. I do. I appreciate the consistency, but there's just like a fundamental value disagreement here.
Why do you hate
alcohol is a problem, but here's the reality. Like, as autonomous human beings with rights ordained by Mother Gaia, if we want to drink alcohol and smoke ganja and maybe puff a little opium, the idea that for lack of a better word, and just with the DEA, not for murder police or whatever, but for like the DEA, like these jackbooted thugs burst into my fucking house and like throw me in cuffs and throw me in a cage. The most dangerous thing about marijuana is that it's illegal, right? The only crime is that it's been illegal for how fucking long. And then when you look at what happens when you legalize other drugs or decriminalize them at the very least, you get better outcomes, like empirically. I'm sorry. Portugal is doing better. Portugal, when they decriminalize their drugs, you saw a drop in HIV. You saw a drop in death.
And here's the thing
some of these programs I think are bullshit, particularly with Portugal, but I'll say two things and I'll let other people in. Number one is that I do acknowledge that even though I find certain things immoral, and me and you have gone down this road before, I will still acknowledge that it is it still has positive effects. Great example, needle exchange programs. Fucking disgusting as shit to me, but in reality, they're super cheap and they do actually make things better. They make it where like HIV and AIDS are significantly lower. We see a lot of bloodborne diseases get significantly lower, and people actually have better lives even though they're using the drugs. Fucking hate that shit. I never want my name associated with fucking ever putting that law into place. But in a closed session of Congress, would I actually fund that shit? Probably yes. Because I still have to acknowledge that, if you are in the seat and you actually are trying to make people's lives better, sometimes you have to do shit you don't morally agree with because it does.
Because AIDS sucks, right?
So, wait, 100%. Wait, can I get in here?
Number
really
two.
Quick?
Sorry. Yeah, number two, and then I'll shut the fuck up. Is I understand where me and you don't agree on this, and we've always had these kind of like disagreements when it comes to like personal autonomy. And even I struggle with it to some degree because it's like, look, I would love to smoke my weed and just be like, fuck you, it's my right, yada, yada, yada. But I have to acknowledge this too. I'm pretty sure I'm addicted to it because I haven't smoked for 2 months. I went clean and I want to fucking just get high every day so fucking badly. It's ridiculous. It was my coping mechanism and I'm fucking losing my shit that I don't smoke because I'm trying to get, a big boy professional job. It's driving me nuts. And there's levels where it's like, yeah, it can give me, it does have carcinogenic effects, depending on how you ingest it, right? And it also, I do believe, has light levels of addiction. And I'm probably at least some level of addicted to it because I crave it, at least some degree, almost every day. So, yeah, I'm kind of saying, even from my own perspective, even though it would make me happier, it needs to be, on Schedule 4, at least. We need to be at least saying, hey, look, You can use this shit, but you do need to use it responsibly. And you know what? I'm 100% with you. I will take people smoking before I take people drinking. Fucking that shit drives me up the wall. It really fucking does. I'm gonna shut up now.
Before you shut up, I want to build a bridge real quick. At the very least, are you in favor of decriminalizing all drugs? Maybe you want to keep them illegal, to like keep them off the streets or whatever, but at the very least, decriminalize them. Because here's the reason why.
Yes.
Largely yes. Great. Thank you.
Yeah, like largely yes. Like I don't like that we're just throwing people in prison. We have more people in prison than China does. It's stupid. And what is it? Over half of them.
Well, they just kill them there.
Yeah. Over half of them, when you go full circle with it, is that like it's all related to drugs, or at least the majority of it is.
That part's not true. It's just federal.
I want to know.
But we look at overall prisoners. It's mostly violent.
Hold on. I want to know why Tiberius hates Christians.
Because he's base.
Well, because he does hate, because he hates Jesus. Because Jesus turned water to wine, and the implication is when in the verse, this is John, by the way.
I fucking hate you so much.
John 9, and the master of the banquet tasted the water and did return the wine. He did not realize where it had come from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew, that he called the bridegroom aside and said, everyone brings out the choice wine first, and then the cheaper wine after the guests had too much to drink, but you have saved the best until now. That implies not only, and this is a big issue I have with my Baptist growing up, that implies that not only was Jesus turning water to wine, so alcohol was fine, it's not even getting drunk that's a sin, because Jesus was getting drunk. That was the point.
Hell yeah.
He celebrated at a wedding. So I don't know about that part, but maybe, allegedly, if you believe the Gnostic Bible. But if we're sitting here talking about the normal Bible, even the implication is there that he was sitting here getting wasted. Would you tell Jesus, the Lord and Savior of Christianity, as someone who professed Christian values, that he is an evil son of a bitch because he likes to drink? Tiberius.
That's not what I
just
said.
Giga chat. Just Giga chat it and say yes. Just Giga chat it and say yes.
No, I'm not feeding the fucking snake. Like, let you say whatever random horseshit you want, but
it's not horseshit. That's biblical.
Hey, really quick, to bring it back here really quick. I'm
literally a humanist.
Hold on.
Okay, I love you all. I'm gonna let somebody else talk.
Yeah. Hey, bring it back really quick about where Lactoid. That one comment you said about how if we legalize all drugs, we'll be able to actually fund weapons over to Ukraine or wherever you want to do. First of all, that's entirely not true. Because I don't know how much. Because I don't know how much do you think? Okay, so I live in Illinois. We have legalized marijuana here. How much money do you think in tax revenue we get last year, which was the highest year? What do you think we get pulled in one of the 50 states?
I don't know. Just tell me.
About $400 million. Okay,
that's a lot.
So that is a lot of money, but it's a drop in the fucking bucket.
Imagine if it was cocaine.
Well, wait, hold on. Hold on. This is one say. Gibbs. Let me get to this. This is a very heavy smoking marijuana state in our state because we have Chicago here. We also have parts of St. Louis down there as well as Rockford, which is a really big city as well. Okay, so when it comes down to us bringing $400 million just for marijuana, you times that by 50, it's roughly around, what is the math there? $20 billion, maybe, if it was all statewide. And if everybody smoked as much marijuana as Illinois residents do, which we can probably say that isn't going to be the case when it comes to like Arkansas, Mississippi, all these other red states in general. So yes, I agree that taxing will join. Hold on, I agree that taxing. I agree that legalizing this for taxing will be a benefit in general, but it's not going to be the amount of money that you guys actually.
You're wrong.
So
you're absolutely wrong.
Okay,
look at liquor. Liquor's 10 billion. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, liquor's 10 billion, but I just said if it was 50 states, it would be 20 billion.
Would be way
am
more.
I wrong? Cocaine would not be way more. And also on top of this, another thing as well.
Have you ever been to like a law firm or like any business office like ever? Like, let me tell you something.
I work in a business office. Yes.
Who is not doing cocaine there? Who's not doing cocaine there?
Gibbs, when I come down to Texas to visit you, I will be gladly doing some stuff with you, okay?
Sure.
I promise
so
you
you
that,
know at the office is doing cocaine.
I promise you that, okay? Okay.
You do it.
I would talk about smoking weed. What are you talking about, Lactoid? Anyways, on top of that,
Schedule 1, Coach. Schedule 2.
You're one of the people that would consider Ohio red state, correct?
Hold on, Vigilante, I can barely hear you, brother. I don't know if you're not talking.
We killed Lactoid.
You're one of the people that would consider Ohio a red state, correct?
Purple. But yeah, at the moment in the last
okay.
election
Right
happened
about the
red.
milk
But yeah,
You-
it's
do
like
you know
it's
how
like
much
55%
Ohio made?
Republican.
Do you know how much Ohio made in just the first week of?
I'm not talking about weeks here. I'm talking about years.
I know, but just in the first week of weed being legalized, do you know how much weed was sold in just the first week?
Well, okay, so there's a few things here. I don't know that answer. But two, on top of that, we have to see how much things are being taxed as well. For instance, Illinois, we tax a fuck ton for marijuana. It's like 40% for fucking oils. It's like 30% for fucking weed, and then it's like 20% for marijuana. It's a huge, huge tax huge tax. So we probably bring more in tax revenue in Illinois compared to like California. I don't know what California taxes, but to be honest with you, or like Colorado, or like Oregon. Also, on top of that, when it comes down to Tiberius, another thing that you talked about in general with like the areas where you can go and get clean needles, safe areas to shoot up or whatever you call it, right? Whatever the word is. When I went to college, my college professor actually started doing this because his brother died of AIDS, becoming a addict. Okay.
So we have a flat
so
tax
there's
rate
two
of weed,
so
which is
there's
10%.
so there's two things here happening. Okay. There's two things here happening. Yes, it is safer in general for drug addicts to actually do this. And I'm not saying I'm opposed against these areas, but what you also have to realize is that a lot of these drug addicts do go there just to get clean needles because they know that they don't want to get the disease, but they don't actually change their drug habits. And that's an issue that we do need to address.
But they don't get AIDS, though, right?
Yeah. It's good for the disease, but I don't know if it's good for the outreach of the addiction of the drugs to spread it. That's the issue.
Sure. But like the main goal here is to prevent the spread of communicable diseases.
Well, I think the main drug is to probably get addicts off of fucking drugs. Is probably the main goal.
For clean needle program specifically, the main thrust of that
clean
program
needle
is to prevent.
Of course.
It's to prevent people from injecting with HIV laced needles.
Of course, I agree with that. I do agree with that. But this is something that goes in my brain sometimes when we talk about this because my college professor talked about it. The benefit for these types of things of decriminalizing drugs across the board is that in 20 years, in 30 years in the future, our kids or kids won't actually be addicted to these drugs anymore because they're not going to get the drug pushed on them. But we don't know if that's going to be the case or not. That's the issue, right? So because if we don't have people try to, hey, you want to do a little bit of cocaine, or hey, how about you try some fucking crack or some heroin or stuff like that? In general, if we can give teaching, and we know that there's bad benefit or not benefits of doing these drugs, there's some whatever, it doesn't matter. We can probably sit back and say, yes, this is probably going to be a good thing, but it's going to take like 20, 30
for the
years.
Raid Razor. Appreciate it.
To actually see that benefit, because we want to make sure that less people are addicted to these terrible drugs. And I don't know if that decriminalizing is the way. It could be. It's tough to tell.
I took a second and actually did the math on how much we made in taxes as well. But in the first week, we made $11 million in sales.
All right, times that by 52.
And because of the fact that we do a 10% tax rate.
That's
in a week. That's in a week.
Yeah, times it by 52. What's the answer there?
Hold on.
I wouldn't. That's not exactly accurate because
I would agree.
The first week would be way higher than subsequent weeks.
I agree.
Right?
That's why I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Times
by 52, and that's the higher
first 2 weeks. The second week it actually ramped up because the first 2 weeks combined was 30 million. So, but just in the first week.
Yeah, but for the year, the projection is 200 million.
Yeah, exactly. So again, and then that's 50% of what my state brought in last year. Okay, so again,
you're not factoring everything in, though. You're not factoring everything in.
I agree with you.
There's the tax inlays that come from the weed, but then there's also the removal of the tax outlays, aka hiring the cops to go kick down doors, putting people in cages, and then we got to feed them. I mean, what, a prisoner is $70,000 a year or something along those lines? And if they're in prison, and if they're in prison, they're also not working, so we're losing that productive force right there as well, right?
The same way the homelessness experiment in Utah almost paid for itself by just buying apartments for all the homeless people.
I looked into
because
those
they had fewer cops that had to deal with that shit. They had fewer ambulances that had to do the same. It was the same theory.
No, wait. I just need to clarify.
No,
I go. Well, hold on. I go.
Black
You are.
Kid?
Yes, I got to clarify that. I know what you're talking about,
Mhm.
and I'm not blaming you because this was incredibly deceptively presented. That it didn't get near paying itself. Actually, when you look at the overall
Well, we had
outlays,
to crunch the numbers because when it became the debate topic, like academically, and it did not pay for itself. Like the original promise was that it would more than pay for itself, but it did pay for a big chunk. Like it paid for most of it. So
I don't think that's
they did
true.
save a lot of money not having to do. But then again, it's also like no people are very reticent to like do cutbacks for police just because the demand for police is going down. You would then have to follow that up by saying, okay, we don't need 10% of the police anymore. That would be very politically unpopular. So they didn't do all of the things that they could have done.
What's the name of the program again in Utah? You said.
The Utah experiment is what it's colloquially called. Hold on, let me see what the official name is. I forgot.
Because I remember there was, and maybe I'm thinking about a different one, but I remember there was like one of these proposed like homeless enrichment programs that hey, look, it paid for itself, but like that was the headline. But then when you actually opened the report and went through the data. It didn't even get close to paying for itself because there was a whole bunch of like costs that they just didn't factor in, and like the actual paying for itself was only in relation to like one or two services. It was incredibly deceptively worded. So I don't know. Maybe the Utah
Housing First. It was called Housing First.
I'll take a look
in Utah. I mean, there's a lot of articles about how the exuberant like predictions like turned out to be exaggerated, but still like it's still moving forward. Like it still has saved them a lot of costs that help like mitigate the cost of the programs themselves, and certainly citizens like not having to trip over a homeless person every 20 feet. Like that's just something that they enjoy. Like, so for them, the costs that are left over are worth paying.
Yeah, I mean, I'll use a quote about stepping over homeless in Portland that we have is you become a little less liberal every time you watch somebody shit on the sidewalk.
Yeah, true.
It's just
true. It's true, dude. My buddy was just talking about
Utah. But with Utah, it was that liberal experiment that got them off the street, right? Like, isn't that what you want?
Right. Yeah. No, that's exactly what I want. Like, the statistics I've seen with as far as homeless is keeping them in their home is cheaper generally than trying to get them into a home once they're homeless.
And critical for the success of the Utah experiment was not having any prerequisites. Like you wouldn't say, oh, you have to stay off drugs, or you have to be off alcohol, or you can't, or you have to be like have no criminal record. They didn't have any of that. So that meant because if you did that, then like nobody qualifies and nothing gets solved.
Exactly. It doesn't fix the problem.
So
I want to take a quick second to shout out all the amazing beards on this panel right now. Love all y'all. Sorry, Paul. You'll
I just shaved recently. I shaved recently.
Paul was trying to look like what Dana Bash was describing the average Democrat low T.
Oh my God, bro! This guy came into my chat the other day. He's like, oh, look at Dana Bash is saying that we like the Democrats are going for beta males, and I'm like,
you know what's really funny? You know what's really funny?
I've ever heard in my entire life.
He didn't even let. He didn't. So it's like a 16-second clip. This is what Paul did. This is how you know that the Democrats are dishonest and not.
Oh yeah, I want to go see the entire statement. That's why I'm being dishonest.
So
I apologize.
I showed the 16-second clip. They have a link to the 2-minute clip at the bottom. All right. He puts the 16-second clip on. He stops it 4 seconds in, goes and looks up an explanation that was all the anti against this, and it was a video of that. It was like a 3-minute video of someone explaining why they didn't do this. Then he went back to it. You did do that.
No, that's not what I did. See, you must have dipped out of my stream and came back.
I don't know what this is about, but the Texas Alliance means that I have to agree with Gibbs here.
Yeah, see,
Okay. So really quick. So what he's talking about is I wanted to see the full statement of the entire Dana Bash thing and not a 16-second clip. I wanted to see exactly the whole entire statement, and I found a 3-minute video where someone says, "Oh, look at what the Democrats said here," which is what he's talking about, saying, "Oh, we're waiting for someone to explain it." But then it literally had the entire 2 minutes, the 2-minute thing of what Dana Bash was saying.
It's all right. It's okay. It's okay to be
No, that is what happened.
Does anybody care? It's a meme. Like
the Dems
it's
accept
just
you as a low T man. It's okay.
I'm not a low T. Actually, maybe I am. I've never tested my T's, so you know.
I'm just
But
saying.
I am fucking a good
Wait,
time.
are you a
Thomas
Democrat?
Gibbs. Yeah, I'm like a center left guy, but
statistically speaking, I got some bad news for you.
I have a huge dick.
Statistically speaking, no.
It's the opposite. In fact,
right,
you're likely to be more likely to be in like a poly relationship where your woman is with somebody and you're not. That's what you're also more likely.
Well,
to be.
we're not in it. We're not in a open relationship or anything like that. I'm not a cuck in a chair.
I'm praying for you. Maybe we can convert you back.
That's not my relationship with my girlfriend.
We gotta get your beard back, and then maybe we can talk about not being.
Bro, I shaved my face
it was
like
all that
once
testosterone that got lactoid motorcycle injured.
True.
I don't know about that. No, I'm saying, look, you notice his face doesn't have any damage. It's because of this manly beard that we've convinced him to grow. That's the only.
Wait, no, I shave my face. I shave my face once a year, okay? Because I gotta get new hair in there, right? You gotta do it like once a year. Get some new hair in there.
Or you can
unless
just
you're too
wash
scared
it
to show your
shampoo,
chin. Unless you're too scared to show your chin, Gibbs. Is that what it is?
I have lots of photos of my chin out there. That's not a problem.
Okay,
I shaved when I was in MMA.
All right.
Also,
you're not gonna pull an Andrew Tate on us.
If you get punched and you have a beard, it decreases between 8 and 15%.
True. Okay.
On your beard.
Okay. You can fight better. I get it. All right. I'm in for it.
Hey, listen. I eat a lot of shots. I talk a lot of shit.
No, you don't. You talk a lot of shit. You don't eat a lot of shots, though. Okay, because I know that you're fucking destroying them before he even starts. You know what I mean?
I don't know about that. I'm slow now. Now we slow. What's the white stuff? It's gray hair. That's what's on my chin.
I'll beat you in an arm wrestle, Gibbs. Lefty though.
Probably. I'm all metal. I'm just gonna be like.
Okay. All right.
But on that note, yeah, low T. Yeah, you know what? I'm also a big fan of the. Here's what I think they think we should do. I think that we should let the pharmaceutical companies maybe start making the drugs, and then we can put them in direct competition with like the terrorists, like the Taliban. Like that, wouldn't that solve the problem with the Taliban? I got no income from poppies no more.
Well, the thing is, like,
they're gonna flounder, right?
When I talk about it, like I support tax legalizing and regulating all drugs, but when we
Sackler family handle that.
When we talk about regulating drugs, like it typically means making the drugs that we're making available for people to buy are things like Adderall for meth or like just like the standard opioids that you would get at a pharmacy for opioids, not like being able to buy heroin. It's not like the fucking extremely dangerous stuff isn't what a lot of us that support tax legalizing and regulating all drugs want to be able to be sold at stores. It's safe alternatives.
I want it sold. I want drugs sold in
sold
stores.
at Walmart. Yeah, I want to be able to buy.
That's how you normalize it, right? You go to Walmart, you pick up your peaches, you pick up whatever else you want,
beer,
and then you grab your 6-pack, and then you go to the behind the counter. Look, behind the counter, I'm fine with that. But then you have the counter where like they'll check your ID and then give you the Coke. I'm fine, but that's what needs to happen. Okay, I'm serious.
Yeah,
like,
and it's the purest Colombian Bam Bam ever, not cut with ethyl alcohol. Like it's fucking put your head through the wall. We know it's gonna get the job done. I'm just saying. Like, listen, you know what we should also do with steroids too. Like, if you want to get juiced up and lose your ball sack. Who am I to judge? I'm just saying.
I never understood. Like, why do people have a problem with that? Like, if you want to get jacked as fuck, what business is it?
Wait, I don't think steroids are illegal, are they? Unless it's sports.
Yes.
No way. Hold on. You cannot. Yeah, you can't just like get anabolic steroids.
Are more legal than cocaine too. You know, it's the funny thing about cocaine is scheduled too.
Now, a doctor can prescribe you certain steroids. Yeah, but you can't just get steroids and juice up.
Yeah, I can't go by
I guess you only need a prescription, huh? Okay.
Yeah, but
it's like a TRT and shit. I can't go buy like Tren and be like, let's go.
when I talk about tax legalizing and regulating drugs, like there are certain drugs that I'm okay with, like just selling the actual drug itself, like cocaine. I don't necessarily see a problem with just like selling normal cocaine as long as it's clean cocaine, because like the overdose rate for cocaine is relatively low. So it's
cocaine in general like really won't kill you. It's the shit that they mix it with. So
yeah.
Cocaine can absolutely kill you.
Let me tell you something. As big
pure
as
cocaine, it's very difficult for pure cocaine to kill you unless you're fucking.
It's called a heart attack,
or whatever.
I don't want to ask Paul to
whatever
prove
the
that.
whatever the
in fact,
cocaine is.
Cocaine actually, like if I'm not mistaken, it is
Cocaine
among all the drugs, like in terms of being cardiotoxic, it is like the worst. Like it is.
Dead ass. If energy drinks will kill you, cocaine will kill you.
Cocaine is worse than meth when it comes to triggering like strokes and heart attacks. And shit.
Dan Blizzard had 3 heart attacks.
I just don't want anyone like coming to Paul later and saying like, my best friend just died because you guaranteed him that this couldn't happen. Like, I wouldn't want to say that.
I am not a doctor. I work in sales and logistics. Do not listen to any medical advice I do. Okay, all right.
Yeah, no.
I am technically a doctor, okay, and you should listen. Not a medical doctor, but I do obviously deal with like injured people.
Doctor.
I deal with injured people, and we got 2 doctors here, okay. And what we're saying is that cocaine can kill you.
3 between the 2 of you.
They're crazy, yeah. But as far as like the danger posed by different drugs, it's bizarre to me how there's this strange standard we have where a drug that even the proponents of keeping it illegal can't point to any evidence that shows that marijuana is more dangerous than tobacco or alcohol or Tylenol.
I'm pretty sure it is. Marijuana is better for you than both of those things.
I bet you Tylenol kills more people than marijuana.
I don't know if that's true, but probably. I mean, marijuana doesn't kill people unless you like literally drive and get into an accident. But why would you be getting into an accident when you're going 35 and a 55? You know what I mean?
A lot of people smoke while driving.
Or driving.
You're going 35 and then 55.
Well, there was a girl here that I went to high school with. She drove 65 up the wrong side of the freeway because she was stoned off weed. Nothing else in her system. So she killed 2 people. So I guess that's 3 people dead due to she's still in jail. So I guess we can kill people. Like I think they can all kill people. Like that was kind of like a secret missile in that case. But
don't DUI. That's don't drive under the influence of fucking anything. Don't be retarded.
That's why he's saying,
Uber's around, dude. That's the main thing.
Well,
just take an Uber, dude.
Uber said that now they're going to start being able to tell if you're under the influence through how you use the app, and they're going to stop accepting people that are under the influence.
Well, then their entire business model is going to crash,
that's
and
the thing
they're going to lose the taxis. Good luck.
That's like when OnlyFans said they're going to ban porn. It's like, do you not know your customer base? What a moronic decision if that's
banned here.
Yeah, I mean, but they banned it here.
I can't find anything talking about cocaine actually being like actual cocaine being able to like overdose on. Like in general, like everything I pull up, it's like, just don't do cococaine. The next time you do it, could kill you. That's all I'm seeing. That's all I'm looking at here. And to my understanding, is it's not telling me an amount to be able to overdose type of deal is what I mean by that, right? To my understanding, cocaine in general is very sure. I'm sure if you do too much, your heart will fucking explode. Okay, just how if you smoke like fucking, it's just how you smoke if you smoke 15 pounds of marijuana.
This is why I know you're wrong.
Whatever, right?
Let me tell you why.
Okay, hold on 1 second. Good. Fuck them. So really quick. To my understanding, is cocaine doesn't really actually kill you. It's the shit they cut it with that actually kills you. Is the reason that's why the fentanyl and all the other bullshit that they cut it with.
Let me read this. I'm going to read this right here. Cocaine overdoses may cause seizures, abnormally high body temperature, and a marked elevation of blood pressure, which may be life-threatening. Abnormal heart rhythms and death. Anxiety, paranoia, and restlessness can also occur.
What is this from the DEA?
This is right off Wikipedia. A severe cardiac adverse events, particularly sudden cardiac death, become a serious risk at high doses due to cocaine's blocking effect on cardiac sodium channels.
Let me give you an anecdotal thing. All right, I can't say that I know from experience, but that being said, hypothetically, if I were to know from the experience, there's the expression, bad cocaine. Everybody knows bad cocaine is bad cocaine. Good cocaine is good cocaine. Why do they say that? The reason why is because if you get the pure shit, after you rail it, you're like, But you want to go like smash your head through a wall, you're hyped as shit, the blood is pounding, and then if you do too much, you start getting the achies in the arms, and then if you keep going, then you die. Like, that's the pure shit. Like, it's pretty simple. Like, I don't know why you're even debating that. In fact, there's been like so many like movies and shit. I know I hate to use a movie as evidence. That, like, will depict this, but they come from stereotypes, right? And you'll see
Haven't
the guy
you
like
seen The Wire?
Yeah, those you
I have
see the
seen The
guy
Wire.
working
Love that
out
show.
on the coke. He's amped up, then he has a heart attack. And guess what? Here's a real life example that I can't even use the words I want. I'm just so hyped with my cocaine use. It's the fucking Dan Blizzard. He fucking had literally 2 or 3 heart attacks while doing cocaine, and his solution to the heart attacks was to do push-ups. Now, I don't know if that's a good medical situation.
Not a good idea.
But that's what he did, and then he eventually went to the hospital. It can definitely induce heart attacks.
Let me ask real quick.
Dan Blizzard's getting the pure coca.
You're saying that it's like very like the stuff they cut it with, it makes it dangerous. We're saying that no, but the stuff they cut it with is dangerous. We don't disagree with that. Shouldn't you be in favor of legalizing it then and requiring that they post the nutrition facts in the back of the pack? Therefore, we know that it's not cut with anything.
Okay. Now this is a conversation, Lactoid. Okay, so I am okay with legalizing marijuana. I'm probably okay with decriminalizing cocaine. I don't even do cocaine, guys. Okay, just throwing that out there.
That's exactly something a cocaine addict would say. But,
I don't either.
I'm just letting you guys know. Seriously, like I really like.
Drug addicts lie, don't they?
I do mushrooms. I do acid, and I do fucking marijuana. Those are.
I do no drugs.
Okay?
Also,
Those what I do. Okay?
I have 0 guns at my house.
I'll be upfront about it. I'm always upfront about everything. Okay. But I would probably be okay with decriminalizing cocaine just for that exact reason why you said that.
Well, the problem is arguably if you decriminalize it, you don't actually get rid of the problem of people cutting it with stuff, because if you decriminalize it, you're not actually addressing the problem of like people making it.
I'm sorry. I apologize. Okay, I would be in favor of actually probably legalizing cocaine.
Hell yeah! Thank you.
Okay,
this is where a reasonable conversation gets
not
us.
Heroin. Not heroin.
A lot of people die because of the heroin's cut with fentanyl. We could remove. Think about this. You look at fentanyl deaths in America. Most of that's going to be like accidental. I'm pretty sure, right? Most of that's going to be like,
absolutely.
My heroin
100%.
is laced with fentanyl. My cocaine is laced with fentanyl. The weed is being laced with fentanyl, and people just don't know, and so they do a little bit and they fucking die. If it was legalized and you buy it from Weed Mart, right, where like the government makes sure they're not putting fentanyl in it. Now we don't. Now how many fentanyl?
So you would ban fentanyl.
No. I would not ban fentanyl, but here's the thing. The problem with fentanyl is people don't know they're doing it, so they do too much. If you're actually doing fentanyl, if you choose to buy fentanyl from Drug Mart, it's going to have the exact amount, the exact purity, the exact percentage listed, and then people aren't going to accidentally overdose.
Yeah, so this is where me and Lactoid separate a little bit, because I do support regulating and like banning certain things and making it to where we're providing safe alternatives. So I would say like instead of like selling heroin, selling probably like Oxy or something like that instead. Or it's like instead of selling like fentanyl, like Oxy and all of that kind of stuff instead. I don't necessarily think we should be selling meth or heroin or any of that kind of stuff in stores, especially when there are alternatives that we could be selling, like that are medically made, like Oxy or.
What if I want to buy meth
or Ritalin? Well, Adderall is basically the same thing as meth.
No, I don't want Adderall. Let's say I don't want Adderall. Let's say I want to smoke some meth. I want to ride the ice pony, and I want to fucking work for 18 hours straight. Who are you to tell me that I shouldn't be able to do so? Hell yeah. Well, see? Legalization is obvious when you actually boil it down to what it is, an individual rights issue.
I mean, I'm in favor of legalizing.
Another Lactoid W, 2 days in a row.
Yeah, let me give you another example. We're about to get another W here. He just said Adderall is the same as meth. Let me add. So it's not. It's got an extra molecule added on the side that's different. Let me give you another example of that H2O.
The same thing.
Okay, well, let me give you basically the same thing. Or how about what's the difference between H2O and H3O heavy water? That's a pretty big fucking difference in what those two things do, right? One's used in like nuclear reactors. One you drink.
Wait. Isn't H2O and H3O not the same thing in general?
Exactly. That's the whole point.
Yeah,
It's one
That's not like the same. Wait, but that's not the same.
One molecule
as,
makes it
the
a big
one
difference.
molecule.
It's one molecule makes a massive difference.
Yeah, sure. That's
hydrogen
basic
peroxide,
science.
hydrogen peroxide in water, right? That's one molecule.
Well, that's what I would.
Well, it's not even one molecule difference. It's one
right?
atom difference.
One atom.
Yeah, one atom. It's even less. It's even less.
H2O2, right? One atom is enough to separate water from hydrogen peroxide. Try drinking hydrogen peroxide.
Than a molecule. Okay, hold on.
That's a massive.
I'm losing my mind here right now in chemistry. My fucking chemistry classes back in the day are coming in the thing. I'm like ripping my hair out. Wait, H3O is not wait, H3O is not heavy water. I'm like losing my fucking mind here.
But
talking D2O. Talking D2O.
On the topic of on the point of heroin.
I win your trivia is D2O.
Actually, you're right. Dyer, you're correct here. Actually, we call it down south. It's not H2O. It's called agua. Okay.
On the point of heroin, though, we literally have safe legal heroin. It's called fuck my brain.
D2O, whatever.
It's morphine. Morphine is literally safe legal heroin.
Well, morphine is not like safe. Like I'm not going to.
Highly addictive.
It's highly addictive. It can cause issues, right? Look. I'm not going to come out here and say any drug is like safe or good, even weed, right? But what I'm saying is that when you look at what I have a right to do, is I have a right to make that risk evaluation for myself, first of all. But second of all, like our schedule on this in terms of like criminalization and enforcement is just seems totally arbitrary. Like we threw darts at a dartboard, right? Like, oh, let's address like dangerous drugs. Okay, we'll throw a dart. Marijuana hits Schedule 1. We throw another dart. Cocaine hits Schedule 2. Throw another dart.
Thank you.
Tobacco hits legal. Like, what fucking dartboard are we using here? It doesn't make any sense. Let's just throw the whole dartboard out and just say, look, I'm an adult. This government takes my money without my consent. The least they can do is not also parent me, right? I don't believe in daddy government. The government's not my daddy, okay?
I like daddy government. I like my roads. I like my bridges and shit.
I would like daddy government too if I was you, because you don't understand basic chemistry. Y'all think that Adderall
you literally just said heavy water was H3O,
it was hydronium.
You're talking about I'm not the one that knows fucking chemistry.
I did. I was right though about it was being a different molecule. One atom changed the.
You know, it's not one atom. It's not one atom. It's a completely different atom.
Hydronium.
It's D2O.
Hydronium is the same as H2O. Is hydronium the same as H2O? No, it's H3O. It's totally different.
Not.
It's totally different. I said the wrong little name. I was correct in the point, though. You're right. Good. You got me. It was a get 'em. You got me. Even if it was D2O, that's a molecule. We got two atoms difference. Wow. Totally different. You're still wrong. You don't understand basic chemistry. Y'all don't understand economics. And then y'all sit here barely understand. Y'all barely understand foreign policy. And then y'all want to go look at the dumb
policy. What did I say wrong? Then y'all want
to go say, look at the dumb Republicans. It's terrible.
Wait, what are you talking about? I never brought up Republicans once tonight.
That's why y'all like the.
Why are you raging right now?
That's why y'all like daddy government. That's why y'all like the daddy government.
I think that there is a good happy medium.
You need somebody to wipe your ass and tap you on the booty and do it for you.
No, I think that there is a good
low T Democrat.
Low T Gibbs right now. You're just screaming to the ether at the moment, brother. Oh, also on top of that, Gibbs. Just for a few things here, I didn't bring up Republicans once tonight. For the first thing.
I've been here a few hours, so you know.
Secondly,
bold of you to think it was only about you. When I say Democrats.
Well, you were yelling at me specifically right there.
No, I was yelling. Hold on, who was the first one? It wasn't even you that brought up the whole molecule difference thing with Adderall.
That wasn't me. That was me. That was Vigilante.
No, you don't even remember what happened 5 minutes ago, and you want me to expect me to know what's going on.
Hold on, Gibbs. You do realize though, I'm on yours and Lactoid's side with this one. Which is something that never fucking happened.
Fuck them, right, Gibbs? Fuck them, dude.
I don't give a shit. Listen, just because you're on side of my side, if you're on my side for the wrong reasons, if you're on my side for the wrong reasons, you know, maybe we can make an alliance of convenience or something.
So to Lactoid, I want to get with Lactoid on this. So as much as I want to agree with you, I got to throw something out there. You look at the situation that happened in the crack epidemic, where you got people in the streets robbing people, all kind of madness, violence, and everything else. Having something like crack cocaine be legal is going to cost more on taxpayers, on the system itself. So,
by the way.
would you want to legalize crack?
Yeah, didn't we have the crack epidemic when crack was illegal? And wasn't it actually intentionally illegal because the Nixon administration, I think, flooded black communities with crack and then used that as an excuse to destroy them? And then we're gonna be surprised.
Yeah, it wasn't legal. It wasn't legal, but it was definitely flooded in by the government for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying, but no, I know, but it was illegal, right? So you have an illegal product, you flood an area with it, and now it's like impure crack that's cheap and available, and then you criminalize it, so you're able to put people in prison over it.
Yeah, 10 years for like literally
Stop them from voting in many cases.
So I would legalize crack actually.
Wow. Everything.
Wait,
I have a question. Wait, hey, Hoss, I have a question to you, Hoss. Because I've looked at this every once in a while. By the way, nice seeing your face. I've never seen you before, brother. You're as handsome as your comments are. Okay.
Well, I mean, my picture is me, like literally.
Yeah, well, I didn't realize that until I saw you tonight. I actually made a joke originally saying, "Is this Gibbs' brother?" And then it was you, and I'm like, "Oh my god!"
Wait a minute, I don't want to hear this from you, Paul. You're the one that canceled the hip hop panel. You're the one who had something better.
I did.
That's your fault.
I had. Dude, Wednesdays are tough for me. Long story short, okay. Long story short, not to get too personal. Wednesdays are tough for me, okay.
Every day is tough for leftists, bro. Every day is tough. All you'll do
no, it's not. Every day is base for fucking leftists. We live in the fucking city. We're having a good time. Mm-hmm. We're fucking eating out. We're fucking walking our dogs.
Wait. Statistically, you guys are much more depressed and less happy than conservatives.
I agree. I'm a happy leftist. I'm a happy leftist.
You are an exception.
Because that particular thing of yes, most leftists are a little bit more depressed because we are more willing to go to therapists. We understand that the world is fucked, and we're sad that we can't fix it because we got Republicans fucking it up.
I go to a therapist to deal with all the cope from y'all. I have to go talk to a therapist every week. Listen to this bullshit I heard this week from these fucking lefties. I'm like, listen to this stupidity. And like, holy shit.
Are very anti-therapy.
No, wait. This is not just like a reporting issue. Like, hold on. Just to be clear, like, this isn't just because leftists go to like therapy more often. This is like consistently not in self-reported surveys.
Wait. You also know the term ignorance is bliss, right?
Hold on. In terms of like self-reporting surveys, in terms of medical reports, in terms of every way that we can measure, like left-wingers are unhappy, they're less happy, and have higher rates of depression. And by the way, generally have higher rates of psychological illness. By the way, and higher crime rates. Compared to right-wingers. And so,
I'm not disagreeing with you.
And I think that's because right-wingers are the true Ubermensch.
I will straight up disagree with
I'm saying ignorance.
No, this is all fact. Vigilante.
I'm saying ignorance is bliss, and the fact that a lot of lefties are a little bit more educated about the world, they are actually sad that so much bad shit has been happening that they can't do anything about. So of course you're gonna get depressed about it.
He's calling you retarded, Lactoid.
Well, that's funny because we've already established lefties don't understand chemistry, economics, or foreign policy.
True.
They're educated on gender studies and pronoun identification. That's the only thing they got going for them, and so they got to force it down our throats. It's bullshit.
You can, Paul. You can say that he is right on this, but that doesn't mean that he's. No, it doesn't.
I will give you so many sources on this.
He's absolutely correct here. Left wingers or whatever you want to call us, leftists are absolutely more miserable than conservatives, men. It's like 100% proven in multiple studies over and over and over again. This is something that we cannot fight as leftists. We need to accept this, and we need to make our base happier somehow. This is 100% correct.
Because they're low T beta males.
That part I'm not necessarily going to disagree with. That part I'll agree with Razor on, with what Razor said on. But the part that I'm disagreeing with is the whole idea of that leftists have more mental illness and all that shit. yeah, of course you can claim that leftists have more mental illness and this shit when right-wingers aren't going to therapy and aren't actually getting diagnosed. So there's no fucking statistics on whether or not right-wingers have mental illness.
There are. Yes,
I got
there is.
diagnosed.
Hold on. There are.
I got diagnosed.
I can send you. Okay, listen. This is something I'm going to pull the lefty. I'm going to pull the lefty thing here. I'm going to pull the lefty thing here.
You did send me an article because I do want to read about it.
Oh, I can send you.
Yeah, he's right here, Razor.
I can send you a lot of stuff.
I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm just saying I don't. I like.
Yes. My opinion on this, by the way, is empirically informed. I didn't have this opinion until I saw the research, and I saw, which, by the way, there's a lot of it, right? And there's a lot of research, and consistently, the evidence demonstrates that conservatives are happier. Conservatives have less mental illness, and conservatives have less rates of depression. And for most ratings, by the way, of like social aptitude, conservatives tend to do better. Right now, this is an important caveat, because I think it's fair to say that there's a chicken and an egg argument. I don't necessarily think it's the case that like being conservative is what makes you happier and what makes you like more well-adjusted, et cetera, et cetera. What I think it is that people are going to gravitate towards political ideologies that tend to reinforce their status, by and large. And the political ideology that tends to reinforce the status for like people who are able to compete in society, which is disproportionately going to be happier, mentally well, like more physically able people, of course it's going to tend to be more conservative ideology. Combine this with the fact that conservatives tend to have a stronger social circle because they also tend to be more religious. So they're going to church more often. That's another aspect of this. They're more likely to have happier marriages because their marriages are based in more solid foundation. I can send you studies on this too. They tend to have happier marriages, and they tend to have they report less divorce rate, and they tend to report better sexual satisfaction. Right, consistently on every metric, conservatives do better.
How much?
I have one. Yeah.
There's some of it that's self-report, and there's a lot of it that's not self-report. I can send you all of it.
There's tons of studies on. There's tons of studies on this, but I guess the question I would actually come back to Lactoid is this: it seems like right now the Democratic Party, you may disagree here, and that's fine, seems to be on the trajectory of being like America-based. Let's keep moving forward. This, that, and the other thing, and we are happy to do this. And then Republicans right now are the country is shit. Where's our American values? What the fuck's happening? Do you think we can see a possible switch here then if we keep going this direction with the Republicans and Democrats, or righties and lefties, whatever you want to call it?
Real fast to add, I'm adding on to that a little bit. Sorry, and something that you're definitely seeing with what he's saying, with what Paul's saying. The Republicans are very much just constantly spreading nothing but fear, hate, and paranoia, to which is very much
you're just wrong with
mindsets.
I mean, that's not
true. Leaving that aside for a second.
Are definitely there.
Let's leave that aside for a second. I don't think that you're going to see a switch, because I think conservatives are still.
You think it's still about the values?
No. I don't think it's about the values. Here's the thing. I'm not looking at like now there is an argument. I forget who makes it. This will be in one of the links I'll send. There is an argument that actually another potential explanation for why conservatives are happier is because conservatives rate significantly higher in putting their locus of control internally, as opposed to left-wingers who put the locus of control externally. Now, what that means is a locus of control is a psychological phenomenon where people who have an internal locus of control, when like they believe that they are the masters of their own destiny, and if there's something going bad in their life, they think it's their responsibility to go out and fix it.
Sure.
Conservatives are much more likely to have an internal locus of control. Liberal, like left-wingers, are much more likely to have an external locus of control, which just means that like when something bad happens in their life, they're more likely to like blame society or systems or institutions or things beyond their control that they have no control over.
I wonder.
Wait, hold on. I'm going to finish. Because having an internal locus of control is causatively associated with life achievement and happiness. If you simply believing that you can pull yourself up by your own bootstraps makes it more likely that you will, and makes it more likely that you'll be happy doing it. Just the belief itself.
So, and like in addition to that, real quick, this is gonna be fast, I promise. I actually went to get diagnosed. I talked about seeing a therapist. I went and got diagnosed And the doctor came back and he goes, "Yeah, you have a condition that many your fellow conservatives have." And I was like, "Oh yeah, what's that?" He's like, "It's being a fucking legend." And
Fucking Christ.
That's all I gotta say about that.
Do you ever get tired of your own bullshit? Like, for real?
I would have been okay if you had actually given me like an actual diagnosis. You would have gotten instead of being a dumbass.
Wait, you were waiting for an actual diagnosis?
I mean, I do. I can give you an actual. I can give you one though. I can actually give you one. I mean, I'm ADHD. I mean, like I've been diagnosed with that, and I've been diagnosed with acute adjustment disorder. Whatever the fuck that means. It means that you have a hard time with change. I guess that's true. Even though my job is selling change.
That's how most conservatives are. Yes, they don't like change.
Yeah, I mean, no.
Well, so let's run through the factors. Like internal locus of control, less likely to engage in criminal activity. They have a stronger familial unit. They're more likely to have a community when it comes to like churches, for example. Like they're more likely to have a happy marriage. Like on all like the important points that are associated with happiness, conservatives do better. And so it's not about like conspiracy theories or like fear or hate or whatever what you were saying. It's just looking at like what is going on in this person's life that is associated with like happiness and lower depression. And conservatives do better in these things. That's why they're going to continue to be happier.
I really think it's
hold on, that internal locus of control thing versus external locus of control thing. I kind of understand what you're talking about here. And based on how I've interacted with different conservatives and interacted with different leftists or liberals, God, again, it always whenever I try and dumb it down as much as I can, so I can like see about getting it out, it just sounds more and more like another case of ignorance is bliss. If you ignore the entire world, if you ignore everything else and only focus on just yourself while everything else is burning down, yeah, of course you're gonna be happier. You're only caring about yourself and doing what you can. But like with like left wingers and liberals and stuff, we are like empathy machines that seem to constantly look out to the world and see.
You guys do rate higher in empathy. That's true.
Yeah.
We are psychologically speaking.
Fire.
Psychologically speaking, that is true that left wingers do rate higher in empathy. Now that being said, you're talking about like an ignorance is bliss kind of element, but actually, here's the problem.
That's what it feels like.
I know you're saying that's what it feels like, but like I would define it more as a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because if having an internal locus of control makes it quite literally more likely that you'll succeed in life, then by not having an internal locus of control, you are preventing yourself from succeeding in life, thus validating your external locus of control.
I do have like a question about that. What if, like, let's say you have an internal locus of control, and you are very much like going forward, doing everything you can to make your life better, but then some outside force that you weren't paying attention to fucks you over. Like,
it can happen.
Like, do you believe that happens? Do you believe that happens more often than not, especially to minorities?
Well, I don't.
Tough titties?
In terms of more, hold on. In terms of more likely than not, I can't give you like a percentage of how often that happens. What I can say is that on average, the people who do have an internal locus control, like if you develop one, like this is causatively associated with like improvements in life quality. In terms of you're more likely to believe in yourself. If you believe that, okay, I have to go out and make my life better, then you're more likely to actually go and do so, as opposed to, let's say you have somebody who's like, I can't do anything. The system's against me. It's systemic everything. I can't do anything. It's a hopeless worldview. And so you're not going to have the motivation to go out and like improve your own life. And then the result is you have a worse life, just like empirically.
I can't fully disagree. I can't fully disagree with you. Something that I would love to have leftists fucking do is fucking shut the hell up and get to work, kind of a thing.
Well, I would say, there's an or here. Or maybe due to having more empathy, you're less willing to take advantage of people to get further ahead in life.
Exactly. No, that's like that's another aspect.
Well, who's taking advantage of who here, though?
We don't want to fuck over anyone else. We want to build up.
But you are fucking people over. All right, if I work 80 hours a week,
I'm not
done. That's not as close of a correlation as you think, by the way.
Hold on, Gibbs. So what I mean, obviously, is we don't want to like. we majority of the time will feel bad about like basically kicking people down on the ladder while we're trying to build ourselves up. That's how at least that's how I've always.
But the stats don't reflect that, right? So like when leftists like rank higher in empathy, that doesn't necessarily translate to like the kind of interactions you're talking about. For example, I can send you a study on like rates of criminal involvement, 4 separate waves. And like left wingers, like the further left you go, it's basically like a linear graph. The further left when you go on like political alignment, the more likely you have criminal involvement, especially stealing. Especially like criminal activity, and vandalism, right? Vandalism, stealing, etc.
But LetheWater, you know, you're glossing over your favorite point here, though, right? Like, and that's this. It's really simple. Like, they say they're more empathetic, and they rank higher in empathy, which is total bullshit, right? And I'll tell you why. Because they're saying we don't want to kick people down the ladder, we don't want to take advantage or step on people, but you know they are stepping on people. When I hear the complaints that y'all make, and I go, oh, well, all your complaints could be solved by working a second job and getting another 40 hours a week, or putting 80 hours a week like I do almost every week. You know, maybe I'm going to burn out by 55. Who knows? I don't give a shit. But I can pay all my bills. I don't have to suck on the teat of society to get by. But y'all are sitting here going, you know what? We're going to go and kick him down the ladder. We're going to go and forcefully take his money, and we're going to pay for these welfare programs because he's got too much, even though I'm willing to put in the work, and y'all are just sitting there on your ass going, oh, poor me. Like, I don't have any sympathy for you.
For what it's worth, that's not what I'm saying.
Let Ty step in because he might actually listen to Ty.
All right, look, I'm gonna separate here because I think you all are kind of right in some regards. My general take on this is that when it comes to like the success and failures of right wingers, success wise, LetheWater has nailed this. Is that right wingers do believe in their own destiny? They are literally like men of action, or women of action, and they do. I think they generally are usually more happy. I don't think they're as doomer, but there is a level of there's an iota of truth in that they aspire to mediocrity to the point where they don't realize what is going on in the wider world and the consequences of their less desirable actions within society. Where they fail is basically callousness, in a way, is that they just kind of get jaded. Where the left succeeds and fails. The left fails in that if you actually do need a teamwork building effort, they generally are better at it. Where they absolutely fail is that they are horrifically envious. I have never seen envy that from the right that comes from the left. Just blatant levels of he has something I don't, and I'm gonna fucking tear them all down with me. It's horrifying. I will separate one. I will separate one thing here before I finish, and that is that the biggest difference here is between leftists and liberals that I want to point out. The leftists tend to be envious. The liberals tend to be the most snobby motherfuckers I've ever met in my life. Incredibly condescending, incredibly elitist, which is fine, but that's to a point. There's a level where I'm just gonna pull the trigger on this one because I don't know how to do it in any other way.
Keep it a buck, Ty.
I'm just gonna say it. I'm cool if you're an elitist, but if you're bitching about having $70,000 in student loan debt, tough shit.
Yeah, go fuck yourself. Agreed. Oh, dude, totally, dude. Fuck you. You know? Wait, why would we actually want to give fucking student loan forgiveness to our future elites in general? What are we just not giving money?
I didn't mean to open up that conversation.
Are we not literally just giving money? Wait, are we not?
Please message me those articles.
Yeah, I'm quite literally. I'm in a lot of pain. I gotta bounce. I'll catch you guys later.
Wait, Razor. Wait.
Y'all be good. It's been good. Fun
love
times.
you too, buddy. Hey, so really quick though.
I need to get going. I feel like shit. I need to go to bed.
I love you, baby.
Well, Haas, thank you for being here.
The trend.
I actually truly love all those people.
Yeah, you did.
No, I was getting ready to bounce anyways, LetheWater. I appreciate the conversation though, guys.
Yeah, no problem.
For everything.
Have a good one.
Before you go to bed, I'm going to slide you a message, just some catch up on a question or two. But I'm going to slide in your DMs, 100%.
Yes. Hey, but Razor, really quick,
Yeah.
just bringing it back to this for 1 second here. Us bailing out student loan forgiveness, why is this not actually bailing out the future elites of America?
100% it usually is. Or at least
I'm not
half of them
saying-
is.
Yeah, like I'm not even saying that it's not, but at the same time, I'm not going to pretend. I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater kind of a thing.
I felt kind of bad. I think Vigilante was trying to ask me a question, but they were going to go down a route, and I'm dying. Oh my god. It's bad right now. I don't know why. One of the worst it's been. Anyway, thank you guys so much for tuning in to today's episode of LetheWaterKai TV. I really hope that you guys appreciated this stream today, and I really hope that for those of you who tuned in, you guys appreciated the stream yesterday. For those of you who don't know, I wasn't able to stream it for obvious reasons, but we did a debate with Destiny, and I do have a copy of that recording that I'll be uploading soon. You can also find a copy right now on Wix channel, and Destiny might release something about it too, who knows. But yeah, three debates so far this week, and there might be another one later this week as well. We'll see. But really appreciate the support as always. I got a piece. We're gonna rate it out into LetheWaterKai because he was kind enough to host us. And I'll catch you guys later. Thanks.